Good evening, race fans, and welcome along to round number 6. It's the Formula Racing League Super Sprint to the Grand Finals. It's Valencia. It is Double O Raven, aka John Wright, joining me in the commentary box this evening. Another wonder from down under in the Raven comms community and not industry. It's just about an industry these days. It's Mr. George Cook.
Hello, great to be back once again with you, John. And honestly, I'm super excited for this penultimate race in this amazing series. It's gonna be a good one.
Oh, it absolutely is, as we take the viewers through all of the action from one of the newest additions to ACC, Valencia. The MotoGP circuit will go a long way to deciding the outcome of the series as we hurtle at breakneck speed towards the final rounds. 7 rounds in total, 14 races, 5 guaranteed places in the finals, 3 playoff spots as well. And once again, 2 super excited commentators, myself and dragging himself out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning to put up with me. It is Mr. George Cook. How are things this morning, George? Looking forward to this one, no doubt.
Oh yeah, fizzing this morning, as always, whenever I come onto the broadcast with yourself in the commentary box. Brilliant, we've got a good energy in here, and good energy out on track as well. But first up, our 15-minute qualifying is going to be happening shortly, followed by a 60-minute race with a 10-minute pit window for the driver swaps. And then we've got race 2 starting after that with the finishing order from race 1, but the top 10 will be reversed. And of course, we've got the same pit window. So same format for both races, but with a nice little top 10 reverse grid for the start. We've now seen 8 teams on the podium so far out of the 30 spots available, with only 5 teams sharing the top step honours in the races. In quali so far, the Italian Job Gold, Thomas Enge, and now PLR, who recently took a pole position. Only those 3 teams have taken pole this season, but it is getting quite close in the standings, John.
To say the least, especially with the amount of points that are up for grabs over the series. It's 103 points for a win, 97 for finishing second. That is a 6-point difference, and there is a 12-point difference, as we can see, between the top 2. We've got the Italian Job in second, and it is Thomas Eng. 3 race wins, 1 less than the Italian Job. That 14th place really haunting the Italian Job. There being the majority of the difference in the points, of course. VDES in 3rd place, leading the charge, only 38 ahead of Rocket Simsport. It's Fast Forward Racing really are going to need to fast forward over 110 points behind Rocket Simsport. Panda Esport, no stranger to the podium. Could there be a late charge for the top 5 in one of those guaranteed spots? PLR Esports, again, another team not unfamiliar with the podium. Indeed, the top spot of the podium with the first place on their resume for the series. It sees them at 42 points ahead of the Slovakian Race Esports. 3rd car. Tire Sim Racing in 9th, and Team Ballast Ukraine in 10th position, George, a mere 56 points ahead of the aficionados of Petroleum.
Yeah, it's a close top 10 at the moment. I think it really is all to play for, even with this and the last race still only to go in the season. But rounding out your top 20 here, P11 at the moment goes to the Petrol Aficionados and the McLaren 720S GT3 Evo. A strong car at Valencia. Be good to see what they're going to do today. NTR Esports Legends, the explosion team in P12, currently on 539 points. They're not far behind Petrol Aficionados, still away off the top 10, but still doing well on P12. P13, Simply Race Esports X ASR in the 555 car to BMW M4 GT3. With some familiar names in the team and some decent results out last couple of rounds. P14 to Absolute Motorsport Asalif, the Ferrari team there, and the 296 on 523 points. P15 to Fun Sim Racing. They always have fun, these guys. I absolutely love them to bits. They've got a couple of penalty points, but it's still all fun and games for them. Maybe a bit more serious in the last couple of rounds. 513 points for them. Then in P16, it is the like and subscribe team. Missed a couple of rounds, but 503 points for the team, so actually quite competitive. In P17, the first of the FRL racing teams, it's the Arrive and Drive guys from Great Britain in the Lamborghini, and they're on 501 points, only 2 points behind the P16 team. P18 goes to Simply Race Esports, ASR, another Great Britain team, DNF last time in race 2, 491 points for them. P19 to the Italian Job Silver. Of course, that is the second team in the Italian Job crew. And then rounding out the top 20, John, it is FRL Racing Team. No aliens here. Another great British team, but choosing the BMW M4 GT3 car.
They are indeed. George, if you could do me a favour and quickly copy and paste me in DMs the server name. I seem to be missing it. I cannot see it for looking. But you are definitely in there. There's definitely drivers out on track. So if you would, that'd be great, and I'll jump through the next bit. We are... as George was saying, we've just jumped through the standing order. I'm just looking for the server. Will be in there momentarily.
I'll send that to you right away.
Perfect. I've thrown him right under the bus because he's got to do the next bit about the track as well. It is, unlike myself, it is a very young track we're at this evening. 1999. It's even younger than my daughter, in fact. Let me change this over. There we go. We've had Spa, Imola, Bathurst and Kyalami already. Of course, Silverstone last time out with that phenomenal night race in the second race of the evening. It is Valencia this evening. Of course, it is 2 races. Race number 2 starting grid will be decided by the finishing order from race 1 with the top 10 reversed. We have seen not only cars get back-to-back wins in the same round. We actually saw, unsurprisingly, the top 3 teams in the championship, Thomas Eng, the Italian Job, and VDES Racing, get exactly the same positions in round 2. The Italian Job won both races. Thomas Eng finished second in both races, and VDES, oh wow, finished in third in both races. Save me here, George. We're at Valencia. Tell me beautiful, beautiful things about the track and save me.
Oh boy, can I tell you some beautiful things and have a little look in your DMs, John. I've sent you the server name. Hopefully that does
excellent
work. But Valencia, brilliant. We're out in Spain, of course. It's a beautiful flowing circuit, is Ricardo Tormo. Almost no time spent in a straight line, bar the main straight, every corner leading into the next, with some incredibly tricky braking zones and a notable sausage curve for the drivers to navigate. Luckily, it's looking like a great day here in Spain. It's nice and hot. It's dry conditions, as we can see. A little bit of cloud cover out there. Track conditions at the moment, an ambient temperature of 26 degrees Celsius and a track temperature of 31 degrees Celsius. Now, I've been here when it's that hot, and it can be a bit of a tyre killer, so we'll be keeping an eye on tyre management today for the teams, because that is going to be absolutely critical. Of course, this track is named after the Spanish 2-time world champion, Grand Prix motorcycle racer Ricardo Tormo, who was born in 1952, died unfortunately to leukemia in 1998, but an absolute legend, one of the most prestigious motorcycle racers in the MotoGP history. All the corners here, in fact, at Valencia are named after famous MotoGP drivers. We've had Turn 4 recently named after, I believe, Terrell. So they do like to keep it up. There's definitely primarily a motorbike track here, but that's what makes it fun in the GT3 cars. We've got a capacity here of 165,000, which is often full, especially for the MotoGP circuits. Valencia, beautiful city. Lots of great people around as well. People like to flood in here. Nice short distance from most locations in Europe. It's got some great views in the stands as well, actually. They pretty much see the entire circuit. So similar to Kyalami, you can basically see the whole thing. Real world fastest lap here in the GT3 class is actually a 132.129. We're going to see a fair bit faster than that today, probably in the order of a couple of seconds faster. That was by Luca Enstler. in the Audi R8 LMS GT3 Evo 2 2023 Valencia GT Winter Series, which happened not too long ago, in fact. So that is a pretty fresh little fastest lap there in the GT3 car. The fastest ever race lap was actually a 1:21.244 in the GP2 05 Dallara series. That was in 2006 by Andreas Zuber. The fastest ever lap here was actually a 1:17.886, top speed of 115 miles an hour, also in the same GP2 series by Nelson Angelo PK. So there's lots of racing that goes on here, I can tell you that. Currently, we've got the Grand Prix motorcycle racing. Valencian Community Motorcycle Grand Prix, which has been going since 1999. The European Motorcycle Grand Prix, it's happened in 2020. We've got the GT World Challenge Europe here that started in 2021, continues to this day. Previously, we've had the Formula One E-Prix here at Valencia in 2021, the WTCC Race of Spain from 2005 to 2012. DTM was here between 2010 and 2012, a favourite series of mine. The World SBK, I think that's the Superbikes, 2000 to 2010. And the Le Mans Series was here in 2000 as well. And if you really fancy like going there in real life, well, on the 16th and 17th of September this year, so literally in a few days, the GT World Challenge Europe is going there again for round 8 of the Fanatec GT Sprint Cup. So that'll probably be one that I'll more than likely be watching myself. But unfortunately, because I'm a half a world away, I won't be going there personally. But my obscure track info for the day, this game was actually available to race on Gran Turismo PSP, if you can believe it. For those of us that remember the PSP, all you kids out there probably have no idea what I'm on about, but I'm sure you remember the PSP just fine, John.
I hope you're not saying I was a fully grown adult and actually a parent by the time the PSP came out, because that would be scurrilously accurate. I mean, definitely not true.
no implications at all, mate. I remember it. I remember it fondly. Right.
Yes, I remember it fondly too, but I was still at that point a die-hard Game Boy player. Go
Oh,
Team
yeah.
Tetris. I got to absolutely love the Tetris back in the day. That was the one for me. But yeah, so there you go. Valencia available on Gran Turismo on the PSP back in the day. But yeah, the track, of course, as George was saying there, absolutely steeped in history. There's going to be some historic battles out on track tonight. I am just very quickly going to do that. No, yeah, the case, that sounds not bad. Just checking the mic levels. All sounding good, and the engines are certainly sounding good up at the front of the pack. And it is Eric Delfant who is unsurprisingly leading the way in qualifying. He's got previous for pole positions. Luciano Whitfit for Simply Race in this one. He is up in his second place, half a second off the pace. Pavlo Polovchuk in third at the minute, Santema in fourth, and Rubia there we can see in fifth position in the Tire Sim Racing Lamborghini. And it really is middle engine rear wheel drive dominance tonight. Again, Yevgeny Nietman, very, very speedy, fast driver. The BMW currently 10th position, 1.3 seconds off the pace. Not going to improve on this one. I mean, it's a bit of an unfair statement to make to say that the middle engine rear wheel drives are dominating, George. We don't have many cars that don't fall into that category this evening, and that might be the reason why. But certainly the BMW, Zupanchik in the Porsche, we've seen this season very, very quick indeed for the Slovakian race esports team, well up in the standings. And the Mercedes of Tresoldi down in 14th. So whether it's by design with the teams actually picking the cars cleverly, but yeah, the middle engine rear wheel drives dominating here, and the front engine and rear engine cars not got a look in at the minute.
Yeah, it's fair and it's not fair to say that the MR cars are definitely dominant here. It's the McLarens have, in my opinion, shown that just the way that the ARBs are set up, the way that it can apply torque down onto the road, they just seem to be a little stronger than most other cars. So it's definitely a standout in the MR category. The MRs will indeed be pretty good around here. Of course, lots of low and mid-speed corners. Not too many high-speed corners to navigate, and lots of little short areas that sort of get to the advantage really for those MR-style cars. But the McLaren is definitely a standout here. I've seen it dominant for a number of times, and I've seen teams that have been traditionally FR teams in high-level competition switch to a McLaren for these kinds of rounds because it is just so dominant. Of course, you look around here, being a MotoGP track, very tight circuit. It's only about 12 meters wide at most places as well, so tricky braking zones, but it's a combination of things at the end of the day because it is very difficult to hook up a proper lap here. Very subtle braking inputs, lots of very tricky trail braking. There's not really many places around the circuit that you want to be slamming the brakes too hard, so maintaining at apex speed, very tricky, and yeah, that gets a bit trickier for the FR cars as well. So at the end of the day, it's a bit of a challenge. It is a bit of a challenge for these drivers, and we may see some teams that we don't expect to see up in the top 10, up in the top 10 today. We may see some teams that we usually expect to see in the top 10, down the top 10. Here's Whitvert for the Simply Race Rocket team. I do love this livery. It's very recognizable on circuit. Of course, another McLaren, the 22 car there going round. He set a pretty decent lap time out at the moment, just scraping into the low 1 minute 30s. So as I was mentioning earlier, the real racetrack lap times here, about a 1:32. So we're already well quicker than that, John.
We are indeed, and there's no sign of the drivers letting up as Philip Ballowender, the petrol aficionados racing, have aficionadoed that petrol. I'm not letting that joke go, by the way. I'm not even going to apologise. But yeah, no, they've got officiated all the way down to the absolute bare minimum. They've got themselves onto the front row of the grid. McLaren, never mind middle engine rear wheel drive, the Meta McLaren getting the job done in Rubia for Tire Sim Racing. The leader in Max Leonard. Oh, the talent in this race is just incredible. I was unfortunate enough to have to listen to some of my previous commentary work. Apparently I'm quite good at it, but yeah, don't please go back and watch FRL and stuff. That are good races, but having to listen to your own voice, not great. And getting to go back and remind myself of what went on with some of these drivers in previous rounds was an absolute treat. And running through the starting order at the minute. Oh, this is going to be some good racing tonight. We've got 3 minutes left of qualifying. We've got Tamir Rakhmetov, who's not set a time yet. Gagliardini is still in the pits for Absolute Motorsport. Asalith could be on a time penalty for qualifying from the last race. I do know that is a thing. Drofter, is that Mr. Goated commentator I hear? Drofter, it is indeed the one and only George Cook out of his bed before. I heard he actually kicked a couple of sparrows out of their bed this morning. Whether he was being nice or just taking his bad mood at the thought of having to deal with a Scotsman at that time was...
I just didn't see them, mate. I just didn't see them. I just kicked my legs out of the bed, and boom, there they were out the window. But no, I appreciate that. 2 goats in the commentary box yesterday, of course. So don't you dare drop yourself down, mate. Of course, always lovely to be here because we've got some great synergy in the comment block tonight, and we're looking forward to a great race. Valencia does prove to be quite action-packed, very tight circuit. The overtakes here are fairly limited, but if you're in a McLaren team today, you are rubbing your hands together and going, yes, give me some juicy points today, because the McLaren, it definitely is, I mean, again, we don't want to be too unfair. The BOP in Assetto Corsa is pretty good, but every car's got its sort of track that it's better at than others, and this is certainly one that the McLaren excels at, and it's slightly easier to set up the car. You don't compromise as much, but the Lamborghinis as well, as you can see after the McLaren train at the top, 1 to 5, then you've got a little bit of a Lamborghini train there, Nopek and Rubia and Leinard as well, so all of them setting very competitive times. They're all in the 130s. I can tell you, John, having raced here before, setting 130s, I can't do that in a McLaren by any means. So the level of racing here for all of the drivers, very, very high. And currently still Defante leads us away with the current pole lap, 1 minute 16 to go. Don't see many out there improving particularly large amounts. We've got some yellow flags going throughout the course as people make a mistake, which is very, very easy to do. Like I said, one of the challenges here is hooking up a lap, and we do say that for most tracks, but there's some subtle things with this track. There's a sausage curb to ride, some really nasty exits to handle, and track limits here. Very, very tricky, especially on this corner one as we go on board now with Del Fantes on another lap. See how wide they run at that turn one. Very, very tricky. Into a heavy braking zone down here. You want to be trail braking through into the apex and get a really good launch. You want to be on the accelerator well before you exit the corner. Another hard turn here. As you can see, no real straight lines at this stage. Straight through here, run it wide, not too wide. You've got about a couple of millimeters there. This is like a really smooth lap here from Del Fante at the moment. Through turn 4 and 5 we go. And this is my least favorite corner on the track. I never get this right, but perfectly navigated there by Del Fante up towards the back straight. It's a pretty short one, this, and it's got a little left-hand kink as well as you come up to what is my favorite area here. This is a beautiful part of the circuit. Off camber, so it's really difficult to get the car slowed down. Slightly downhill as well. Runs just a little bit wide there. It looks like he got the power down quite nicely across the right-hander there. Straight onto the brakes and round it round. And this is where the really tricky part begins, because this is where the sausage curb is. This can send you to space, John. As I'm sure you're aware, you get this wrong, and that curb will send you to space, and to space Del Fante goes.
Does indeed, right on cue, and I've got the audio monitor on. Curse of the commentator, Drofter, in the chat. He will be eternally grateful as Agent Cook gets the job done, bestows the curse of the commentator.
It had to start with someone, didn't it?
It did. Yeah, listen, if you can start as you mean to go on, George. You know what I mean? Start as you mean to go on.
Yeah, we have a phrase here in New Zealand. It's take the weather with you. In this case, it's more like throw the weather at someone.
Yes, what a song that is, by the way. Absolutely love that. Crowded House, Take the Weather With You. Phenomenal. That is an incredible tune. Thomas Eng Sim Racing at the moment, though, 4/10. It's incredible to be talking about 4/10 as being such a large gap, but at the moment it actually is. Let me know how the sound is back. And he's gone across the line. Third place. He's going to join them on the second row of the grid. We'll bring that up. But yeah, let me know how the audio is, and we can hear George and myself. Just let me know how the game volume is sounding at the minute as we bring you the results from the qualifying, and it's Delfant and Delia once again getting the job done. 2 purple sectors. It's Whitvet and Klassen in second for Simply Race, with Santema and Van Sand on the second row, with Balawander and Lynn, and Rubia for Tire Sim Racing is ahead of Polovchuk and Nyastyan, who is making his debut in the series. Thoroughly looking forward to George pronouncing that one at 5 o'clock in the morning. We've got No Peckendale in 7th, Leonard and Loesch. Look forward to that Lamborghini during the race. Madawi Newty making a debut in the series as well, so good to see a deep roster drivers being used. Ellinger and Veldman. Not a great experience at Kyalami with Audi, definitely shows a lot of promise in the race. Cosford and Stamenkovic are there for Ballas Esports, and it's Napier and Pooley for Simply Race. Japanchik and Mason. Brown and Robinson, of course, for FRL. And no FRL arrive and drive Lamborghini.
Yeah, they don't seem to be on the grid at the moment, or maybe they're on the second page, or but no, shame, at this stage. Yeah. Oh well, that does occasionally happen. Sometimes you can't get the team organised and out to a particular location, and yeah, that's right. But
George, we've got. I was going to say we've got 2 1-hour races tonight, and that 10-minute pit window in the middle.
That's right, which this time I will get right. So 25 minutes in, you'll have 10 minutes to get into the pit lane, swap your drivers out, and get back out on track. Of course, if you do miss that, you're going to be getting a bit of the slap on the wrist by the stewards, and you don't want to get that, because that's really going to compromise you today. We will go out for our out lap very shortly. There is no wind on circuit, despite that flag on the right having sort of indicating so. Away they go for the formation lap. Optimum track conditions here, slightly overcast at the moment, 25 degrees Celsius ambient temperature, and a slightly cooler track at 6 p.m. in the race day here at Spain. So it's 28 degrees out on track. So yeah, we're going to be keeping a good close eye on the top. De Santo there was able to get that Lamborghini up ahead of a couple of those McLarens, which is, to be fair, quite an impressive feat. So very impressive considering the closeness of this field, John.
Indeed, yeah. Salvi and Rubia it was that actually took that qualifying time for tyre sim race. And of course, the timing tower will update when it decides to when they go through the sector board. So we'll find out exactly who it is leading the way. It looks like Santo was due to be the lead driver. He might actually be behind the wheel. It is in Rubia that is going to lead the way. So
yes,
there we
indeed.
go. We're getting confirmation. Sorry. Yeah, on you go, George.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to make a quick note here because the 989 car appears to be starting from the pit lane in this race, which is really not where you want to be. So the Michelin Motorsport car, the Audi, not out on track, not on the grid, so they might have just missed clicking drive in the game, which is so unfortunate if that's the case. Otherwise, making maybe some sort of tactical choice. It seems almost anti-tactical if you ask me, but sometimes these things do happen, so we will see them start from the pit lane.
We will indeed, as they say in dodgeball. It is a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it works out for them. We've got Del Fante up at the front with Luciano Whitbit on the front row. I really hope Kieran's watching. Santema in third. Balawander is going to lead the way for the petrol aficionados. Every team here can race. I'm not going to say another team that can race because they can all race. Let's just take that as a pre-read of the situation. It's going to be an hour out on track. We got George beautifully taking us through a lap until he bestowed the curse of the commentator early doors, just letting the drivers know who's boss in this situation. And
I thought I disproved it last time. I thought I disproved that commentator's curse, but the conspiracy has returned once again, unfortunately. So it is what it is. But yeah, side by side they go. We're going to go down the pit straight now. So we'll take us away for 60 minutes race here in the VCO X FRL Sprint Series here to race to the grand finals. We're going to be going for 60 minutes at Valencia. The lights will go green, green, green. We're away. Good start there from Witvot. Santima as well gets a nice little run too, but Defante is going to have the inside line for turn one for the first time. Really tricky corner. This can cause some chaos. A little bit of side by side there. Going to be running wide. A couple of maybe track limits as well. And Rubia, this is a brilliant start for the Lamborghini driver. Hard on the brakes. Nearly goes into the back there. Close racing. Sandwich there for Leinart as well. This is absolutely top stuff. And that's a Lamborghini going very, very wide there in turn 2 and 3. Good start though. Side by side action between Witvot and Del Fante though. These two are inseparable at this stage. Santima as well up now and continuing to stay ahead of the McLaren just behind. And that's a spin. That's a spin. And Rubia is gone. That's a disaster for the 134 car and the 69 car. Some more action happening down there. It's a Ferrari involved and getting collected in the action. That's really unfortunate, but the 179 car takes us away. Del Fante having a good start. Here's the replay of the start.
Yes, indeed. I'm going to run that in the bottom corner while you keep an eye on the drivers up at the front. Phenomenal start that was. I was absolutely engrossed there, as we can see. Leonard looking for big moves in the Panda machine around the outside of Guerrilla Racing, Tyre Sim Racing. Right there in the middle, beautifully controlled on the brakes as it's 3 wide through turn number 4. You would expect nothing less, really, as Nopek, in the Panda Racing car. We can see Balawander up ahead making big move attempts as well. Here comes the contact though through the middle sector of the track. And he's just way too late on the brakes. Cold tyres, too much fuel, whatever you want to call it. And of course avoiding action being taken in the background, and that's absolute motorsport as well. And here comes Matthew Feltham, so maybe not so bad an idea starting from the pits, and Ruby now down in 17th position, Nopek in 16th, but it is still Del Fante and Witvit lighting the timing to, in fact no they're not, because Santema, Thomas Eng up to third. He's taken himself a good position, but Balawander, George, he fancies a podium early doors.
That's right, and he's staring down the back of the 121 car as we speak and doing a great job here. Santima, of course, being defensive, taking a nice wide angle in there, but slightly missing the apex as well. There's a lot of different philosophies in this track here, but some great racing out on track. Ironically, that contact we saw earlier, 2 Lamborghinis and 2 Ferraris. Oh, that's very wide for Santima. Oh dear, on the outside it goes, and on the inside goes Balawinda. So this is not where you want to be going side by side. Will Santima back out? No, they are forced to go side by side. Wide has been Santima forced out wide. So nice move there by Balawinda. He's up into the top positions already. Brilliant stuff to get ahead of the Thomas Enge team.
Absolutely phenomenal drive there. Can he catch up to Whitvet and the gang ahead? Is Abe Santima still going to be in the slipstream through turn number 1? First question, maybe. Second question, absolutely, definitely, as we're on board now with Santima. Balawanda leading the way. Rakhmatov just behind as well. He'll definitely be benefiting. And here comes the Panda. Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's my favourite team here, Panda Esport Racing. I won't tell everyone the moniker that I go by on Twitch, but nonetheless, great.
No,
please
do.
Well.
Crazy good kung fu. Please type in the chat and follow George. He races on ACC as well. You can commentate. Thomas Nopek. Wow.
Oh,
let's watch a replay of that save, shall we, George?
Yes, please, because that is the Lamborghini doing Lamborghini things and the rear end stepping out. They nearly went side by side here. In fact, they did through turn 1. I think someone rightly so backed out, going a little bit wide there, dipping the tyre over. Into turn 1 we go. Big on the brakes. Let's see where this little slide ended up happening, because that looks pretty smooth there through turn 1. It's got a big Mercedes behind, maybe a little dirty air, not helping as well, but I think it was just through here, just a little bit overcooked, and yes it is. Oh, runs wide and just dips a tire onto the gravel, and look how squiggly it is now. Oh dear, that's very impressive stuff from Mopek. Keep that on track. That's absolutely amazing.
It is indeed very, very, very good drive, and still some very good driving going up at the front. Whitvet and Delfante are still dueling it out, as we can see. Whitvet absolutely in the hunt, and he's just taken the fastest lap of the race. It is 6 p.m. in the game time, times 2. Transition, so it'll be 8 p.m. by the time the race finishes, so the track will be down a couple of degrees, so we might see that time tumble as the fuel loads lighten. Rakhmatov looking to have a tumbling off positions in the VDES junior car. We've seen the VDES team work well together up at the front, bringing home race wins through this series. Absolute contenders, definitely for one of the top 3, if not top 5. They're in for championship wins if they can keep the results the way they are going. Zupancic as well, the Porsche, really quick drivers. Expect to see them bounce back a Porsche friendly track next time out. Nopek back on track, and he is in 14th position. George, we are going to see a charge through the field there, absolutely no doubt whatsoever.
Yeah, the Lamborghini driver now challenging Alan Brown on the inside as we go through the infield section of the track. So it looks like Nopek will move up into P13. No, Alan Brown defends very, very nicely. He's got a train of cars behind him, which includes Rubio, who's involved in the early contact. So beautiful battle here, and great driving by the BMW driver in Alan Brown there for the FRL teams. Oh, that's not a very fast exit though. Forces Nopek onto the marbles, and that'll give the Mercedes of Tresoldi a really good run here. Will he be able to send it into the final corner? No, thinks better of it. Imrubia is thinking, I'll take that opportunity quite happily and go on through. So Alan Brown in the space of 2 corners has lost 4 positions. Really unfortunate. A 5-second penalty for the 5th place car of Rakhmatov now. So he is being penalised, I believe, for some
big contact. Lamborghini 14th and 15th in Rubia. Oh, let's watch a replay of that, George. I'll put that on the screen for you, mate. Let's have a look at this one.
Oh, dear. I feel so sorry for Imrubia because he just got past the car of Alan Brown. He had a good run on the straight, but maybe got a little bit too eager. This is what sometimes happens when you have an early-on disaster and you know you're fast. I mean, he's got top 5 paces in Imrubia, but unfortunately here, the side-by-side action, the overspeed from the Ferrari, which are on board with right now, has to turn in at some point. and Rubia just maybe goes a little bit wide. It's a racing incident as far as I can tell, but the person who's lost out big time on that is Rubia, and the Ferrari will drive away. That's the absolute motorsport Atlas car of Luca. But yeah, the leaders at the moment really starting to drive away with it. 3.6 seconds the gap back to Ballawenda from Witvot, who's only 1 second behind Del Fante. So those two cars are holding quite close together. Lionard we're on board with right now. So in front of them, see the white McLaren there. It's got a 5-second penalty. So all you have to do, Lionard, is just take it nice and easy. Now, I was going to mention this actually, John, because the McLarens, yes, they've got some serious pace here, and they, will often qualify all the way at the top. But look at the grid just after those top 5. It is starting to mix up quite a lot. I can tell you from personal experience, the McLaren's tyres, with all the load that you have to put into it, side by side. Oh dear! Yeah, careful there. That's we've seen several moves now at turn 1 side by side, John. They're going side by side again. Oh my goodness. Oh dear, we have to keep a very close eye on this. Lionard, that's slidey on the outside, but controls it on the marbles. Beautiful work from Lionard. Polivichuk is going to chuck it up the inside, and there's contact. Lionard's round.
Oh, big full replay on this. Yeah, let's go for a big full replay on this. Straight on. Talk us through the replay if you want, George. I'm absolutely mesmerised by your commentary here, mate. Take us through this.
Oh, this is unbelievable. So we're going through the last few corners here, and Lionard here is going to get a great run on the white McLaren ahead, but the white McLaren's going to get a little bit eager up the inside on turn 1. So down the straight we go. Let's see who's going to get the overspeed. These two McLarens ahead of Lionard now, who's in the 159 car. The Lamborghini is going to... oh, by the way, we need to keep an eye on this. Del Fante's just lost out a position at the top, and he's gone back. So while we're on this replay right now, so the contact happening in turn 1 there, and they're going side by side, and then the sandwich. Lionard says, hey, I'll be the meat in that sandwich, and go quite deep into turn 2, but really kind of bottles it. Nearly gets contact there from the 121 car, but holds on to it. Through goes Rakhmatov, which is really good. And then Polivichuk, unfortunately, sends it up the inside, which was never going to happen. That door always closed, and now you've got a very slow Lamborghini sitting there. Everyone's taking avoiding action. Crikey, Del Fante, by the way, just had a huge moment out on track, is now retaken the lead of this race, but it was a bit touch and go as well for our leader. Whoa, John, over to you so I can catch my breath.
All at 5 o'clock in the morning, race fans. That's right. George Cook, Crazy Good Kung Fu on Twitch. Make sure to give him a right click and a follow. Incredible action through the field. As I did say in the opening, all these drivers can race. Cody Cosford, bit of a beneficiary. Oh, Simply Race, my apologies. I said it was Ballast Esport he was racing for. It's Simply Race that he is racing for in the blue, black and white Lamborghini there. So my apologies to Cosford and the team for miscalling that. There is a couple of teams that he drives for apparently. Oh, and we've got penalties coming in thick and fast. Hi to everyone in the chat. Blue, at least it wasn't us, he says, Drofter. I hope you guys are doing good. Yep, I mentioned that one. Smiley was asking about the timing tower. We're going to be jumping between myself and George's screen. He doesn't have the timing tower up on his, but we will have it on the main screen, as we're seeing a lot of action on the main screen. Polovchik within 2/10 of a second of another car. I did say fast forward. We're going to have to fast forward, and the Audi could get it done in the races. They're up to 5th position with all the shimmying and shaking that's been going on. Up at the top of the tree is Del Fante, still with a 1.1 second lead over Witvit in second, Balawander third, Rakhmatov fifth, Rakhmatov 4th, Illinger 5th, Polovchuk 3/10 behind in 6th position at Santema in 7th. Look at Madawi. Cosford and Supancic not too far behind, with Max Leonard now in 11th position. Gagliardini is up to 14th, putting pressure on Trizoldi. The opening lap action yet to subside, and I don't think it is for the next 48 minutes. I can pretty much guarantee that one, George.
Yeah, that's right, and that was close. And actually, I was just thinking about Illinger, and that's a nice little switch back there. Polivichuk looking very racy out on track at the moment for Team Ballas Ukraine, the 141 McLaren. But Illinger is just, he's just chilling out. He's just saying, look, you do you, I'll do me. I'm going to go defensive. I'm going to hold the inside line, and doesn't quite do it. Just as I say it, I'm not going to call that a commentator's curse, but it's a little bit ironic. Polovichuk there is not able to get past there, because that's not where you want to do it. That corner you want to absolutely nail, so you get a good run down to the last corner. But yeah, an absolute tsunami of penalties being handed out on the track. So just quickly recapping some of that, Rakhmatov, I believe that penalty was for on board. That was a little bit of counter steer input there from Polovichuk. But 5 seconds there, I believe that was for causing a collision on lap 1. Polovichuk, of course, here tapped Leinard, sent him around into a spin, so that 15-second penalty there for him. Medhau, I'm not quite sure where that 15-second penalty came from, but if you've suddenly jumped up into P9, actually no, sorry, that's equal position because he qualified in P9.
Side by side, he's up the inside. He's Huzzy, beautiful cutback by Cody Cosford, sees that one coming, puts the car back up the inside. Madawi back down into ninth, and the penalty flood continues as they two continue to make contact, as they continue to go side by side, as Max Leonard in the background says thank you very much, I'm going to have a couple of free positions, as I was sent to Shadow Realm words earlier on in the race. He goes round the outside, and in the background it is Zopanchik, who at this point absolutely can't believe his luck. Surely the Slovakian racing esport car well on, he's gone right up the inside. Max Leonard, Panda Racing, he's run it a bit too deep. Cody Cosford having to pull every trick out the back to hang on to the positions here. The drivers around him though, Thomas Nopek's getting right in this, and they've gone side by side once again. It's amazing how often I use the words side by side and background. I'm really trying to restrict that at the moment. We've got Thomas Nopek who's lurking. He's the third driver in the equation. This corner here, so many drivers really struggle with this one, George. I've got no idea where to look, as again we see Cody Cosford defending a potential cutback, and Thomas Nopek for Guerrilla Racing looking like he's getting a lot of slipstream into turn number 1, George.
Yeah, but Leinard's not going to get any slipstream now. In fact, he's got a car right behind him in Nopek, who is going to get a nice little slipstream. 2 Lamborghinis side by side, turn 1. Please don't end badly. Oh, dear, it did. Okay, I hate to say it, but turn 1, guy, it feels like you can do it, but you're carrying 250 kilometers an hour. It's a slight tap on the brakes and a hard left corner. You throw the car into it, and the chances of the car on the inside getting a little bit wide and squiggly, very, very high. It's a 99% chance that contact's going to happen. Leinard, of course, then loses out. 20 seconds of penalty for Leinard's car and the Panda Esports racing team. That's massive. By the way, just a note up the top, Illiger has gotten overtaken by Polovichuk. So Polovichuk has now managed to get through finally on the Audi, but the Audi just needs to keep his pace. He's got 2 cars ahead of him with penalties. Pretty much a guaranteed P4 if you can hold the pace in this race. 45 minutes to go. In race 1, it's been very exciting so far, but John, you said you shouldn't say side by side too much. It's Valencia, mate. It's all side by side, as you can see right now.
Indeed, yeah. Thomas Nopek again trying to pop his nose up the inside. Cody Cosford cannot compliment his driving enough this race so far. He's been coming under all kinds of pressure from all drivers around him at the minute, but he did manage to eventually get past, but he is keeping Thomas Nopek in the rear view mirror at the moment. Gets an excellent exit from turn number 1, comes flying past the pit exit along one of the longer start finish straights on the calendar, and into turn number 1 he's almost broken that slipstream. Certainly no gains for Nopek in the background. It's Zopanchik. He really carried a lot of speed, couldn't handle it, and he's given Max Leonard the look up the inside. What a move on the brakes for Leonard. What a driver. You've absolutely got to love the talent of the drivers on display, and Max Leonard for Panda Racing Esports hasn't had the most auspicious of starts, finding himself down the order, but he is getting those overtakes done, George. Panda Esports back up to 11th position as the battle between Nopek and Cosford continues.
Yeah, Lionel will be right in that battle pretty soon. 20-second penalty is obviously going to hurt at the end of this race, but they've got 43 minutes to go. If they keep this rate of overtaking, they're going to be right up there challenging for things. And of course, you've got Medhau just up the road as well with a 15-second penalty, currently sitting in P8, followed by Cosford, in the number 2 Lamborghini. So the Lamborghinis and the Audi, they're losing out a little bit. So the McLarens are starting to sort of pull away. But I do happen to know that we're going to be coming up to the point in this race where tyre degradation is going to become quite significant. on board with Illager at the moment in the 252 car, coming around the last corner there, turn 14, also known as Campos. Well, I think it's Curva de Campos, if you use the proper Spanish. My ex-flatmate, who is a Spanish major, he would be absolutely crying now at my pronunciation of all of these names and stuff like that. Illager's been having a very quiet, sensible race here. This is what you have to do at Valencia, because if you get feisty, if you get desperate, if you get eager, or over-eager, I should say, or overconfident, that's when those accidents happen. That's when those penalties get applied. By the way, just a note from the team from Formula Racing League, multiple stewards on duty tonight. That's why they're not racing. So they're all packed into the stewards box going, right, let's get this absolutely spot on. So far, I think they're doing a good job over there. And of course, big thanks to all the Formula Racing League guys, because they do a brilliant job in the background to organise such excellent racing here, John.
They do indeed. Barely gave them a mention in the opening, and I do apologise. It is, of course, we've been swept up in all the action. They've got multiple channels on Twitch dedicated to ACC, be it on PC or PlayStation 5. If you want to get yourself involved in the racing, why wouldn't you? This is the standard that we are seeing, and there is levels for all. They've got multiple tiers, PlayStation 5 and ACC. The Discord link is in the chat. Jump on there, and of course, it is all beautifully choreographed is not the word I'm looking for, but sorted out on YouTube. It's all in beautiful. Oh, and of course, they've added another channel, and this is going to be one that's going to be of much interest to some very close friends of mine. R Factor 2 was introduced yesterday. So branching out into R Factor 2, which again, between some of my friends, has had absolute rave reviews. They are limited. I can't get my wheel dialed into it at all. The thing is trying to kill me twice. Not going back to it.
Yeah, it's revenge factor from your wheel to you, isn't it?
It really is. There's far too much dust sitting on me. Kapow! Broken thumb.
That's right. Yeah, straight out of a Batman comic from the 60s, mate. I tell you, R-Factor is great game to be branching out in. Not one that I've had any personal experience, but I've watched enough of the broadcast to know that it is a... There we go. Yeah, let's focus on this battle, in fact. R-Factor, glad they're reaching out, and that's Enrubia going for it. I was actually going to request that we jumped on board with Enrubia, not just because he's currently in a battle overtaking Brown. By the way, Brown, not quite sure what's happened, but he's just fallen all the way down the order, now sitting in P16. But this is a fight back in Rubia, so something we're going to focus on, we'll keep an eye on certainly throughout the remainder of this race, because obviously Rubia was nearly running up in the top 3 positions until a fortunate bit of contact sent him spinning around. But just to give you an idea of Rubia's situation in the 134 car at the moment, 9.5 seconds to the back of Tresoldi, who's also fallen slightly back off of the top 10. Currently setting times that are close to a second faster than those ahead, setting currently at best of 131.235. We've got a 133.5 on that last lap because of the fight with Brown, but expect that to go up. Currently not holding any sector bests, which is kind of not surprising considering they'll be holding a bit of damage as well. But Rubia will begin this fight back. They've got to do the pit stop as well. Don't know whether they'll decide to repair the damage. They might decide just to hold on to it. Be pretty brutal. Be a bit of a hospital pass to the second driver in that team. We're only 4 minutes away from the pit window opening, so keep an eye on Rubia as we go. I think it's still on for Rubia to potentially get back up into the top 10, and currently on the rear wing camera of Cosford, who's in a nice little battle. Got Nopek and Leinard behind. This has been a battle that's been going on for quite a few laps now. Absolutely brilliant stuff, John.
Yeah, it really is. The Lambos are absolutely duking it out for the positions inside the top 10 that have kindly been afforded to them by the McLaren drivers. Illinger, Fast Forward team, unsurprisingly making up positions in the races as they so often do. Max Leonard, again, unsurprisingly doing the same in Nopek. Deja vu, broken down record. Makes up places in the races, and he is trying to do so again. The track conditions absolutely beautiful. The temperature dropping down to 27 degrees, so obviously below 20 degrees we'll see the absolute fastest times that we see from the drivers, but at the minute with a 1 minute 30 1:36.3 fastest lap. Oh, and that's a mistake by Cosworth into turn number 1. That has opened the door wide, and Nopek has wasted no time whatsoever in jumping through both feet then. So let's see if he got slightly unsettled on the exit. In fact, if we watch it from Nopek's point of view, and in fact, is Yevgeny Naitman out the server? Yes, he is. Let's jump on board with... Oh, and it's 2 wheels on the grass on the inside, George, and that is a lot of patience from Nopek. Very, very, very nice turn 1, and that is a position back in the bag, and he's now free to charge on ahead and try and catch up to David Madawi, who has done not too much running since these drivers behind got themselves into this battle.
That's right. Yeah, 15-second penalty, of course, from Madawi and the 180 car, but... you know, sometimes you just got to deal with it. You know that there are going to be penalties around. There'll be penalties later in the race. Good line there through the Heraros corner of number 12, turn 12. Yeah, that little move then to turn 1 for Nopek, beautifully calculated, very, very aware of what was going on with Cosworth. Cosworth actually did well to kind of hold on to it, dipping 2 wheels off the other side of the apex. Not quite how you target the apex, but very bumpy if you do that, and yeah, you get run wide. Usually you do run wide, so I was sort of had my heart in my mouth for a second there, but Nopek sort of correctly navigated that and saw it all happening. Went, yeah, okay, I just need to back off the throttle. Don't get too excited. Cosworth will be slow, no matter what. So just hold it on the inside, then I'll have the inside line, outbrake him into turn 1, or don't. Just hold the apex and it'll be all good. So Cosworth here is going to be struggling a little bit. It looks like that Lamborghini's rear is just starting to maybe give way as well. We're about a minute away from the pit stop, so I get the feeling that Cosworth's going to be saying into his radio, guys, get me out of the car, get a fresh set of tyres on, send out driver number 2, and let's get this race on. The undercut here has been notably quite strong in the past, and that's very deep into turn, I believe, 8. Very deep there from Cosworth. So yeah, I don't think those tyres are necessarily holding on as well as the team may have thought early on in this race. By the way, just a quick note here, the leader, Del Fante, is now out to a 4.6 second gap. So Del Fante at the moment is absolutely running away with things. Beautiful drive so far. From all the top 3, in fact, no penalties at the top. So ITG Setup's going to be very, very happy with the 179 car and Del Fante's stint. Don't know quite when they're going to be coming in, but they're looking quite good out there. They could potentially just run it all the way towards the end of the pit window.
Yeah, I would definitely say that would be a solid strategy. They've got nothing in front of them, and it's unlikely they are going to catch up to Feltham in the next 10 minutes, which is when the pit window will close, because I hope I've spoken slowly enough, because that is the pit window now open. Look at that.
There we go. Perfect timing, mate. That's
Indeed.
Chef's kiss on timing there. There you go.
There we go. Thank you very much. What I do need to do before I get distracted is I do need to say good evening to Emperor Pegasus, who was in the chat very, very quickly after the stream started, and I saw your chat cheering on the petrol aficionado, so apologies for not recognising that. I went straight to Drofter's comment first, but welcome in, Emperor Pegasus. Getting the Discord rolls from James, who's doing a bit of he's not driving tonight, he's doing some stewarding at the moment. There's Feltham coming into the pits, so Del Fante definitely won't catch him, but I'm sure James any minute as well will get the YouTube channel link shared. As I say, all of the ACC action, some of the largest grids on PlayStation 5 on ACC as well, all back catalogued. That's what I'm looking for on YouTube. We'll get the link for that in the chat very soon as well. They're in the off-season at the moment, but there is plenty to go back and watch, George, as we see Santema, the first one of the top runners and championship leaders, no less, followed into the pits by Max Leonard and Panda Racing.
Yeah, probably a sensible move there from Linar. Just get in, get that penalty served, get a fresh set of tyres, put the second driver in, get out on track once again. Yes, as you said, we've got Santima for Thomas Enge. We've got Trasoldi now coming into the pits. By the way, Feltham, he's actually already been into the pits before the pit window was open, so that's his second pit stop in the 989 car. They've had a bit of a bad day, really. They started from the pit lane. They were involved in contact. The car had a couple of disasters out on track that we didn't show on screen. They went to the pits, repaired the damage, came back out. Now they're back at the pits once again for their mandatory pit stop. And all eyes are going to be on Del Fante now for the Italian job. When will they pit? When will they pull the trigger? They can see cars around them pitting, but to be fair, those cars that are pitting are far enough behind that you don't really need to worry. You've got your clean air. Continue out. Oh, here we go. Got the 121 car there of Thomas Enge coming out of the pits now, so that is clean air no longer.
Indeed, yeah, the drivers do like to make a fool of the commentators as often as possible, George. So as soon as you make any type of assertive statement with confidence, kapow! Sorry to drag up.
Yeah, well,
I do like to throw the spanner in the works.
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, the great Murray Walker, for those of you who don't know who Murray Walker is, easily the greatest commentator in all of Formula One history, and certainly one of my favourites. He had a great saying. He said, we don't make predictions, we make prophecies that turn out to be false. And it's very, very true at the end of the day. We really don't know at the end of the day. That's what we're here to do. We're here to figure this out at the same time as you guys and provide some insights on what's going on. That McLaren of the Thomas Enge team is looking a little bit squiggly. That's not going to help the graining early on. You really want to look after the tyres, and that blue flagged, of course, as well. So the Fante will be let through. And clean air once again for the 179 side. So as you can see, it wasn't a prediction, it was a prophecy. It was briefly false, and now it's true again.
A broken clock is correct twice a day. Look at Gagliardini.
Exactly.
Look at Gagliardini for Absolute Motorsport. Asilith comes in to the pits. Sandro Van Sand making a debut in the series. He is the Thomas Enge car. Thomas Enge driver that's coming out for the second stint. Here comes Ben Crook in the PLR Esports car. We saw how quick that thing's been over the last couple of races. Pole positions and race wins. Remy Loesch taking over for Max Leonard, and it is Pleister who is out in the Michener Motorsport Audi, and we've got Rakhmatov coming in to the pits, and we're really going to see the penalties coming into massive play as Rakhmatov's got 5 seconds Polovchuk, although he's got the 15 seconds. Madawi with 15 as well. Illinger is in the pits for Fast Forward Racing. It's all action, and again, George, we've seen a lot of teams coming in pretty much just bang on the halfway mark of the race. There's very much a small number of cars that come in as the pit window open, and almost the same number of cars that stay out until the pit window closes. It's definitely been a trend at the halfway mark, just straight 50-50, balance the fuel, balance the tyres, and straight run for the end for driver 2.
Yeah, I think it's a great point there, especially about the tyres at the end of the day. It's a hot, it was a lot hotter, but still very hot out on track, and this circuit really does tend to burn the tyres. It's very easy to drift the car. Lots of tricky higher speed corners where you're really slamming the throttle down and holding the car in. So lots of graining here on this track, as evidenced by the number of marbles you can see out on the far side of the corners. Lots of tyres getting ripped up by this beautiful circuit. But yeah, so tyres very critical. The halfway mark does seem to be the sensible place to do it. Of course, the stint length for the second driver will always be shorter unless you pit before the halfway mark, which we did see a few do. Cars to keep an eye on at the moment. We've got Balawenda, who needs to pit. Whitford, who needs to pit as well, 6 seconds behind Del Fante. Del Fante's just said, right, let's send it. We're going to use every single bit of the tyre right now. In the pits comes Polovchuk, so that's going to be one to keep an eye on. He'll fall down probably a couple of positions. Rakhmatov, who's now switched into, I believe that's Ogoroknikov, now in the 410 car, will get ahead of Polovchuk in the 141 car, so that will switch around. The question is, will Illiger be able to take advantage of any of this? And I think the answer to that is probably yes. Don't think it's going to be getting ahead of the 410 car of Ogoroknikov. Oh my goodness, here we go again, John. But I think they will definitely get ahead of the 141 McLaren.
Yeah, I think they will. It's all changing at the moment. Up and down the board, the drivers go as they make their way in and out of the pits. Polovchuk, Cosford, and Zapanchik all in the pits there. As George pointed out, Del Fante Bit between the teeth, and you can see the marbles on the track highlighting the other point that George made about the tyre shredding drive-through for track limits. Again, a point George made in the opening. All tracks have track limits, but some are more inviting than others. Case in point, Misano. It is one of those tracks. Where was the track I was at recently? I said it's kind of a 3D Misano. It's almost like I did a dozen races last week and I can't remember which one. But there was another track I was at recently that is very much like Misano, and Valencia, George, as the race leader comes in, Valencia, it is different. Different tracks are different for the track limits, and this Valencia is absolutely one where you are invited to the absolute edge if you want to be competitive.
Yeah, one that I always remember as being very inviting to those track limits. And by the way, just speaking of that, Van Sand for Thomas Enge, drive-through penalty. Oh dear, that's going to really cost the Thomas Enge team there in race one. That is going to be almost certainly track limits. So, as you said it, John, here we are dealing with it right now. By the way, our leader in Del Fende has come into the pits, and Rubia now into the pits as well. But Sandro Van Sand, they might have been carrying some warnings from earlier in the stint. I do remember the start, and the Thomas Enge team was one of those cars that go very wide at turn one on the first lap of the race. So it might have been carrying some warnings there. Sandro Van Sand might have been just pushing things a little bit too much in the McLaren, but either way, that drive-through is going to cost them. They're coming into the pits immediately. Get rid of it, get out there again. You've still got 5 cars still to pit, including our new race leader in Whitford. They'll be coming in. So D'Elia now jumps into the car here for Panda Esport Racing. Still carrying a little bit of damage there. I wonder if they didn't decide to repair that. They may not have, which is very, very interesting. But there we go. Things will continue to switch around. D'Elia is now going to take the reins on the leader's car, the 179 car for ITJ. So we'll see what that driver can do in behind the wheel, as we do see Nopek now coming into the pits. So this is all going to sort itself out because they've got 56 seconds for the last pit stop. So Brown has got 50 seconds to get into the pits, or is going to be slapped with a big, big penalty. But John, brilliant, exciting stuff so far here at Valencia. I think the track that I was mentioning before, the track that I was thinking of that really has that track limit warning thing, Paul Ricard, invites you out to the edge of the circuit, loves to trick you into it, and then suddenly you've got a drive-through.
It really does, and it doesn't help the fact that you are invited onto the other side of the curb in some places with those little white markers that stick out the ground, almost like a downhill slalom. Trying to train your brain to aim to go that far wide off the long straight is, it's the why these drivers drive, and we commentate. Although, to be fair, George, you are a couple of seconds quicker than me, to say the least. You'll be much more used to riding it out on today. I was so proud the first time I got a drive-through for track limits at Misano, because I really felt like I was driving quick laps. I was actually proud of myself. My friend Chris Williams was in at the time. I was doing my LFM license races.
I see.
Yeah, I've got
Misano's a great. Misano's a great track, and it's, if you're driving it well, getting a drive-through is pretty tricky there. But there's some pretty nasty little curves at Misano too. And by the way, I just want to quickly make a note here. Flawed Genius Gaming in the chat with a big raid on the channel, so a big thank you to him in chat. That's absolutely legendary. Welcome into all the raiders. Absolutely brilliant to have you in here for the VCOX FRL Sprint Series here. This is absolutely brilliant, and we're at Valencia for the penultimate round of this series, and it's getting very close in the championship standings, and this is all for the road to the grand finals in the VCO grand finals. So this is a big deal here in the race. Huge thanks to Flawed Genius Gaming, part of the 00 Ravens comms team. So lovely to have him in here with the raid.
Yeah, it really is. Flawed Genius, thank you very much. Eradicated Zombie jumping into the chat. It is indeed John and George on comms this evening. You're kidding, 1 minute ahead.
That's just lucky, isn't it? Hey, bring in the raid, get an ad. Quick note here, John, just redirecting our attention to the race for just a second before we go back to that. Alan Brown and Balawenda are still to pit. The pit window, as far as I understand it, is now closed. Balawenda was running up in P3. What has happened to them? Or is that just the timing sheet playing tricks on us? does say that Balawenda has pitted on my timing sheets. Brown, though, has not.
Okay, I don't have Pitbull Live open at the moment, so I can't actually see on there if it registers that he's taking a pit stop or not. But you're right, he does still have the one next to his name.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, I think that's just a ACC in-game issue at this stage, because on my lap guide here, it's telling me that there is a pit stop for Balawenda.
He's just not swapped driver, so that's why the one's not disappeared. He hasn't met the requirements of the pit stop because he hasn't changed driver. So there's obviously been a problem with his teammate. So he will get. Oh my goodness me! Let's do the maths quickly. It's a 1 minute 30 lap, so it's probably going to be about 160 second penalty, unless it is mandated fully in FRL's rules.
Well, we can go and double check that as well, but it will be a hefty slap on the wrist, unfortunately. Yes, it will be. So whether it's I've made this mistake in an endurance race of all things, actually, where we changed every single setting in the pit setup, but we forgot to driver swap. So I had to go and do an extra lap out there. It was one of the most embarrassing things we've ever seen in our little endurance racing team. So it could be that. It could be that the Balawenda's teammate, unfortunately, is no longer in the server. That's entirely possible as well. Jimmy Lin is the teammate of Felipe Balawenda in the 67 car. So Jimmy Lin either not being switched into the car, although if that's the case, then you just go around, you do another pit stop, and you should be fine. So I suspect you're probably right, John. Probably a disconnect or an issue getting this driver swap in there. And of course, Brown here still yet to pit, so I don't quite know what's going on with Brown. I'm trying to double check here. Who's Brown's teammate? Let's have a quick look. I don't
Robinson.
think it's even registered. Robinson, yes,
Lewis
it is.
Robinson, yes.
So, yeah, I'm not quite sure what's going on there for FRL team with Alan Brown. Maybe he's having to run solo. Maybe another issue with the driver swap happening. Not something I'm particularly familiar with in terms of that glitch.
Whatever's happening, they are, as you say, going to get themselves a fairly monstrous penalty. Martin Klassen for Simply Races taken over for Whitvit, but Delia has absolutely taken over for his teammate. That gap now up to 10 seconds. So you can call the McLaren meta all you like. You still need to get behind the wheel and put the laps in.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, I obviously I harp on quite a lot about McLaren. I'm a McLaren fan, so there may be just a little bit of bias going on.
Just a touch.
The best car, guys. It's just the best car.
Even though he knows the Ferrari's best.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you just just put it on the track. Just put the McLaren on the track, and you roll it down the first pit straight, and it wins the race. You know, that's how easy it is. No, I'm absolutely kidding for all of those rewatching later on and all watching now. By the way, John, we've just had a bit of information from lovely Smiley, one of our moderators and FRL admins. 130 seconds will be the penalty applied for not making the mandatory stop. And they know that Brown, unfortunately, has not got a teammate today. So while the teammate is registered in the entry list, unfortunately, Robinson not able to make it to the circuit today.
Indeed, that is. So yeah, 130 seconds will be added. Just a big thank you once again to Flawed Genius Gaming for bringing in the raid. This is Formula Racing League. Full dedication to sim racing on multiple platforms. They've just added R Factor 2 as well. Channel for that. Multiple channels for PlayStation 5. Of course, Mr. Sean Madden, one of the leading protagonists in getting that channel very quickly affiliated, covering with some phenomenal coverage of the Taco Tuesday and Sunday Masters and multiple other leagues that I should probably keep better track of. Head is spinning. And of course the two PC channels as well, all back catalogued on YouTube. And if you do enjoy what you're seeing, of course the Discord, best way to get yourself involved in the racing action and keeping up to date with everything that is going on with FRL. There is a lot to get involved with as well. A lot of games covered. There's even a bit of Wreckfest, and I saw What else was it I saw? Something else as well. This is round number 6 of the Formula Racing League Super Sprint to the Grand Final, a 7-round 14 race competition to decide 5 cars straight into the VCO SimGrid Grand Finals, which will itself be a 3-round endurance series taking place in November and December. The top 3 in this championship will get themselves a GT3 car in the final. The 4th and 5th will get a GT4 car in the final. 6th, 7th and 8th will get a GT4 car in a playoff series, playoff race that will take place in October. The top 3 cars from that playoff will get themselves a GT4 car in the final. GT7.
Exciting. No. We don't look at that comment. I had a bit of a bad day out in GT7 on Sunday. I am. That's why I put the comment in #no. But just coming back to the things on the track, a little bit of information for everyone. 17 minutes left in this race, and of course, very exciting. As John was mentioning before, this is a big deal. The VCO Grand Final is very exciting. There'll be mixed multi-class racing, all held, of course, on SimGrid.com. SimGrid, so make sure you check those guys out as well. But Formula Racing League, one of, I believe, 10 teams competing in the Grand Final, so spots are available for that. Registration obviously is closed, but very exciting. It's great to be part of it in the comms box as well. So D'Elia leads us away at the moment, setting fastest lap times, 1:30.297. Klassen is going to be in for a solid P2 here if he holds on. Balawenda in the 67 car and Brown, both of those will drop down pretty much at the bottom of the grid with 130-second penalties. So the petrol aficionados, well, they had a brilliant start here. They're not going to be going too far, unfortunately, on their petrol today because that penalty is going to be absolutely massive. Now, the interesting thing here is Ogoroknikov and Rakhmatov, who are in the 410 car, the McLaren, currently in P5, are in the line right now for a P3 finish. On board at the moment, just by the way, with Nuti from the Silver Italian Job car and P14. And a note here, Veldman, who switched into the Audi for Illigner, they are actually only 2.7 seconds behind Ogoroknikov, and that is a potential there for this Audi driver to get up into the P3 position. So right now, technically on track, running in P4. So these two are going to be in a little bit of a battle later in the race. We've got 15 minutes left. So I say later in the race, probably in the next 15 minutes, which is not particularly long. But it's worth points, and that's potentially a P3 position. So keep an eye. That's technically we're on board with P5, but that's actually at the moment, that's a 3rd place position, and Veldman running technically in 4th. So the VDES Junior Esports team, they're going to have a little bit of work to do, but they're in a McLaren. Here's the bias coming in again, John. But the Audi here, we know that Veldman is a quick driver, the fast forward racing team. They've had a good day out today. Really have.
Yeah, definitely have. As we saw the dominance in qualifying, the McLarens and the Lambos, it was hard to be touched. They were outside the top 10. They've made up places. They did drop 1. They were up to 5th at one point. Sure, if you told them before the race you're going to get 6, they would have taken both your hands off very, very quickly for that finishing position. Of course, the final race on the calendar is the Nürburgring. 2 races there still come. Still got another race here to come, race number 2. The finishing order from race 1 with the top 10 reversed. So it's going to be Delia starting in 10th position at the minute with Martin Klassen. 4th in the championship, 2nd out on track at the moment.
Yeah,
this is sorry.
No, that's quite all right. This is actually a really critical point because the top 10 reverse are absolutely crucial now for the Thomas Enge team with Sandro Van Sand on debut to get up into that top 10 position. If they can get the 10th position at the moment, they will start on the top of the grid. They do need that to continue this run of good championship luck. At the moment, of course, they're leading the championship standings. I think they've got about 959 points. But Italian Job Gold, who are currently leading the race, 947 on the back of a 1-1 victory in both races in round 5 at Silverstone. So the most consistent team has been Thomas Enge with consistently high results in all the races. But as you said, earlier on in the broadcast, the Italian job actually have more first place finishes in the races and, I believe, more first place pole positions in this series so far. And they're only on 947 points, so there's 12 points in it. And with a result, as it stands right now, P13 for the first race and a first place for Italian job, even the first place position right now in the standings could be under threat for Thomas Enge. So getting up, it's crucial for Sandro Van Sand at the moment to find a way to get that gap down, get up into the top 10 and get a really, really good start for the team.
Yeah, it really is absolutely crucial. As you say, there's going to be more than a 30 point... Excuse me. Whoever said commentating in a dry room with the PC firing hot air was good for your throat, knew nothing of what they talked about. What have we got? Where was my train of thought there? It was the over 30 point gap there's going to be between the points haul in the championship leader and the current race winner, and there's only 12 points between them in the championship standing, so it very much looks like into race number 2 of round number 6 we will see, for the first time in the series since round 2, a change in the championship leader, as I am quickly distracted by Michael Firth picking up a drive-through penalty. 11 minutes left to go. Let's hope that is not a number that trends upwards, as we see a Gornikov there for the VDES junior car. Third in the championship, of course, so looking quick, but getting a very nice overtake done there on Brown. Don't think he put up too much of a defence, so realising he's going to get a massive penalty. But still, a Gornikov in the McLaren getting it done on the BMW, George.
Yeah, that's right. There's no point having any risk there for Gornikov. Did very well. Found, just waited, was patient, as you can see. A few corners very, very close to the back of that BMW of Alan Brown. Alan Brown doing a very good job solo driver today, which is very tough in this team environment. An hour out there on Valencia by himself, and up the inside, I believe Gornikov will go momentarily as Brown slips a bit wide. So the McLaren just says, okay, I'll turn it a little bit more, get on the throttle a little bit early, and I will take that position. Brown not deciding to fight that too much, although a little bit of a cutback there. But look how deep Alan Brown unfortunately runs. That's the problem with that corner. You brake 1 meter too late and you are 15 meters outside the corner apex as you go towards, I believe that's turn 8, I think, so I probably got that wrong. No, that's turn 10 and 11. Sorry, my fault. Still learning the track a little bit because, Spanish names, as my flatmate who's a Spanish major knows, Spanish words, Spanish anything really. I do somehow struggle with it just a little bit. Don't know quite why. He's probably got some theories himself, but he hasn't told me. Ogrodnikov, of course, now will be up at a P4. Good stuff there. Velbin, it's all towards Velbin now because Velbin needs to get ahead of Brown too. Although at the end of the day, it's all going to sort itself out. I don't think Velbin, just based on what I've seen, has got the pace to get ahead of Ogrodnikov up in the 410 car McLaren. It's just, the McLaren's just been starting to find a bit more extra time. If Velbin is held up here for too long by Brown, which is looking like will be the case, the Audi and the BMW much more matched together. So, and now on board with Dale in the 69 car, John, and having a quiet race down in P9. We'll start P2 in the next race, which is quite good for them.
It is indeed. We saw the pace that they had. They were involved in a couple of opening lap incidents. Got a penalty, seen them drop down the order. But as you say, they're going to start on the front row at the moment. They've got Niaztsin, who, again, making the debut in the series for Team Ballas Ukraine. Ahead of them in 8th, that looks fairly secure. Nico Veldman. It is Audi versus BMW for 5th position. Out there, and in the background, in fact, not too far behind, Milos Stamenkovic for Simply Race Esport. He's taken over for Cody Cosford, and with 9 minutes left to go, he's certainly giving the I was about to say he's giving the rear view mirror of Veldman a good view of that Lamborghini badge, and Veldman there almost giving us a good off-track view there. George Veldman, a bit, as you say, you just need to be a couple just centimetres late on your brakes and you really do run deep here. A very unforgiving track in that sense, although Veldman has not given up on the chase for Brown. Stamenkovic surely looking good for an overtake here with these two battling ahead.
Best place for an overtake right into the last corner. A little bit deep there from Veldman. Taps the side of Brown, pushes them a little bit wide. Stamenkovic will take advantage of that in the number 2 Lamborghini. I'm getting there. Brown, of course, will be shouldn't be looking at turn 1. Decides to stick a nose in there. Good racecraft to say hello. I'm still here, by the way. But unfortunately losing that position there. So Brown will fall down the field. Stamenkovic, this is very interesting because Veldman right now is technically in overall P4 position, but being stuck behind Brown for as long as he has really put him into the grasp of the Lamborghini. The Lamborghini will be the superior car here in the last 7 minutes and 30-ish seconds of this race. The track continues to cool around us as well, so the Lamborghini, which is usually really rough on its rear tyres, is actually going to come into its own in the slightly cooler temperatures. The tyres will grain slightly less, and it really depends a lot on how much tyre life did Veldman use. And here we go again. That, by the way, that send by Stamenkovic in the previous lap basically winded me like I'd been punched in my stomach. I sort of, the breath left my lungs, John, for a second there, because it's downhill, it's off camber, and if you're not trail braking in the right way, the car just turns into an aircraft, and suddenly you're no longer really connected to the circuit. But at the moment, Stamenkovic is absolutely attached to the back of Veldman, and Veldman's got a bit of work to do in the last 7 minutes to stay ahead. But no chance now for Veldman to get ahead of Ogrodnikov up in P4, who will take an overall P3. They'll be absolutely stoked in the 410 car. That's great stuff. By the way, D'Elia still having a quiet little race out the top. 11 seconds is the difference. And, Santos had a bit of an issue too. But on board now with... Oh, no, you set it up just so I could do this.
Yes, Alexander. Go with Alexander and I'll let you off the hook.
Alexander. Okay, there we go. Brilliant. We'll have another pronunciation lesson later on. But the 141 car here, so Alexander, now on the back of Brown. So Brown's just, holding a little bit of a bottleneck here. But the reason we've been asked,
always away.
The reason... Oh, yeah. Goodbye, Alan Brown. So I salute you, sir. You've held on very well. Does rejoin the track. Actually, that's a very efficient track rejoin there from Brown. I've got to give it to him. So we're going to have this on the replay now. And coming into the corner 1, Alan was under quite a bit of pressure there from Alexander in the background on board at the moment. We're going to see a big bit of counter steer in a couple of corners here. So through turn 1 they go, into turn 2, into turn 3. And turn 4 here, this is Terrell, and just runs it a bit wide, gets on the power too early, and goodbye. Look at this line, though. This is a great little recovery. Just goes, yep, I accept what I've done. I'm going to find the most efficient way back to track. And he does so. So well done. Well done, and commiserations.
Yes. Dr. Pepper moment.
That's right.
Could have been a whole lot worse. Stamenkovic, as you mentioned, he has been throwing a lifeline at the end, and that lifeline is the slipstream of Nico Veldman. We're 35 laps, 55 minutes in. We've got about 3 laps left of the race. Veldman and Stamenkovic, you've got me at it now. Stamenkovic battling out for 5th position. Oh, and that is very close. I really need to stop using the word a lot as well. Santo is out for Thomas Henk, as we saw. A bit of a baptism of fire, that track limit penalty in the drive-through. Really setting them back some time. Nicolo Nutti, who's making his series debut as well for the Italian job team, 14th position at the minute, but still within slipstream range of Van Sant. So Van Sant is going to have to be on the ball in the closing stages. So too, that got really laggy there. Oh my goodness, my God. Right, okay, so that's fine, we can deal with that at half time. We've got Santo, who is in 12th position at the minute. The charge to try and get back to 10th to get pole position in race number 2, not quite being completed. Santo, 12th place at the moment. Stamenkovic in 6th position, still closing in on Veldman. Van Zandt still closing in a bit on Santos, so he's still got some work to do. The closing 4 minutes could be some of the most uncomfortable for a few of these drivers out here, George. Santo had a difficult opening, and he's going to have a difficult closing with Van Zandt and Nutti just behind him. And Stamenkovic, he really is keen to take that 5th position that Veldman and his teammate have worked so hard to get their hands on.
Yeah, the irony in that if he does get past, he'll be put 2 positions down for the next start. But that's pretty much as small a change as you can get from a reverse grid, because obviously first will go to 10th, 10th will go to first. So biggest change there will be 9 positions between them. But if you're 5th and 6th, which they won't be, but if you're 5th and 6th, you're only going to switch around by 1 position. So no harm done at the end of the day. But this will be a couple of positions switched. So Stominkovic and the number 2 card there will be switched a couple of places down. And yeah, currently Van Sand with Santo. So obviously Santo and Van Sand were both at the top of the grid earlier on the race, and unfortunately for them, they're now battling down the back here for not particularly special P12. For Van Sand, he just hasn't made the positions that he needs to. So, of course, you've got Mastian up in P10. That's the position that Van Sand and the Thomas Energy team really want to be holding on to. But it's a good 7 or 8 seconds down the road. In fact, more than that, sorry. It's actually 11 or 12 seconds down the road currently for De Santo. And there's no way you can make that up in 2.5 minutes, sadly. So that drive-through has really, really cost them a massive amount. And just, you know, at the stage that they got it, probably just needed to take a bit more care with the with the track limits, instead of pushing it too hard to try and gain positions within the top 10. Instead, now they find themselves outside the top 10. And yeah, very unfortunate end to race 1 for Van Sand and the Thomas Energy team there. But, you know, we know how fast they are. They'll come back next time. Santima will be back in the car for the start of the race, and that was very close. And is it going to be a send down the inside? Oh, just sticks a nose in. Stominkovic just being very sensible. Good racecraft there. Just keeping an eye on. And actually, that's a terrible exit there for the Lamborghini. So Velban gets away with it once again. The Audi's looking very good on corner exit. Not great down the straights in a way. The Lamborghini, we know, is very, very fast out of the corners. Got the ability to get up to its top speed very, very quickly. Just doesn't have a particularly good top speed, which doesn't actually matter too much at this track. John, over to you again.
Indeed, yeah. Still looking at these battles, as you say, Stominkovic and Veldman there. Stominkovic getting a little bit lively in the Lambo, really pushing those multiple aforementions of the track limits, really out on the green stuff. With those tyres, so it really needs to be careful. I don't want to curse at the commentator or any of the drivers, but with a minute left to go, we'll have only seen a couple of penalties for track limit violations, and that has been much to the detriment of the drivers that have received them. Obviously, Van Sand, the driver that we're talking about. Again, we've seen this a couple of times in the series. Some of the faster teams find themselves down the order due to racing being racing, and when they're trying to make their way back through the field, to come across another team of similar top 10, top 5 pace, and it can't end up just holding them up. So 12th and 13th and 14th position for these 3 at the minute, and that's where they're going to start in race number 2, which is coming up right after race number 1. Has Van Sand got the run out of the last corner? They're going to come across the start-finish line side by side. Newty not able to get involved out with the start-finish stage, so it's a good run by both of them. As the McLaren going to go round the outside, both drivers need to be very compliant. He's only just on that green AstroTurf, but he's still on the outside. Is he going to be able? Oh, and the leaders finished the race. My apologies. I think in notification he was on the last lap, but Carlo Delia. This was the last time Raven ever broadcast, but Delia crossing the line, class in second, Balawander in third with a big penalty there, George. Phenomenal end to the race. It's completely caught me off guard.
Oh, fair enough. I mean, they've had such a quiet race up the top, so we've been focusing on these other battles that have been going on. Of course, Dale, Mastian and Crook now at it with Brown out in front. The battle between Crook, Santo and Van Sand and Newty, Santo, Van Sand and Newty has been absolutely spectacular to stay on board with. But yes, this grid rounds out. There's the 130-second penalty for Balawenda, who does finish the race. Ogoroknikov will go up easily into P3. So the top 3 is Delia, Claesen and Ogoroknikov. So the 179, the 22 and the 410 cars, all McLarens. McLaren top 3, very proud of the teams there. Done very, very well. Stominkovic does come across the line, will take P6 because of the penalty. Brown takes the 130-second penalty. Niaz is No, I'm not even going to try, John. Alexander does take for the 141 car the P7 Thomas Enge, of course. P13, no change there. So Sandra Van Zandt, still a good recovery to stay P13 after a drive-through. Very impressive. But Nuti will take P14 for the Silver Italian Job team, the ITJ team. So here's the overall timetable here. And we will take the replay, of course, because we need that. We need that very much.
Indeed, we
nonetheless,
do.
Overall,
yes.
very good. So, yeah, crikey. Quite the race. Very boring for those at the top, but a few really good battles around the grid, John.
Absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, Delia and Delfante ran their own race. 12.4 seconds, the finishing gap over a very competent rest of the field. Those penalties for the non-driver swaps, Balawander and Brown dropped to 14th and 15th. As predicted by George Gornikov, and Rakhmatov promoted to the podium. Veldman and Illinger bringing home 4th with Stamenkovic and Cosworth bringing home 5th position for Rocket Simsport. Nyatsian and Polovchik in 6th, Dale and Nopek for Guerrilla Racing in 7th, Crook and Trizoldi for PLR 8th position. And the rest of the full results will, of course, be available on the SimGrid website, because I do like to forget to take a screenshot of that while I am doing the replay, George. But that is an incredible race. Race number 2, the finishing order from race 1, but with the top 10 reversed. We've just seen how interesting this gets in the opening stages with the track limits. Multiply that by 1 million for race number 2, I would say.
I'd say so, and of course with the top 10 reverse, you've got the likes of the Italian Job Gold, who'll be looking to take another 1-1 here in this round 6. Of course, they'll definitely be keen to do that, but they've got a bit of a drive, 10th to 1st, and a track that's very, very difficult to overtake. It's what's the word? It's not easy, is the word. So they're going to have a lot of work to do, but they're going to have some very fast cars, not only to overtake, also to keep around is going to be the Thomas Enge team, who'll be starting in P13. And they will be making some progress through the field as well, I suspect, because we saw the pace of Santima as well. Very, very, very solid job from Santima. So, fortunately, the drive-through that was accumulated by the team, not necessarily Van Sand's fault at all, because there could have been a couple of penalties. We don't know how many penalties the Thomas Enge team were racing, but that is absolutely the significant news of the day, because even with just the race 1 points, if we just added up the race 1 points, I think you'd find that we have a new leader in the standings, and that is the Italian Job Gold team, who have gone from strength to strength. Now, I believe, hold equal wins in... Well, actually, no, they still hold more wins overall in this sprint series for the VCO final, so they could be quite easily looking at a great finish here. But we've got the replay now. So, well, not the replay, but the highlights. The Sim Rocket team there had a bit of an unfortunate issue, because I don't think we saw them in the rest of the race. So we went from 19 to 18 participants, and I think they had a bit of a disconnect issue, John.
Whether it be racing of the sim or real variety, technical issues do like to rear their ugly head a bit too often for my liking, unfortunately. So yeah, a couple of teams not making it to the end of the race. Phenomenal effort by those who did. It is, as George mentioned, it is the Super Sprint to the Grand Finals. It's round number 6. That was race number 1. We're going to see race number 2 very shortly. It's exactly the same format over the 1 hour and 10 minute pit window for the drivers to come in and hand the reins over to their teammate. They are vying for those guaranteed 5 places in the SimGrid VCO Grand Finals, a 3-round endurance event taking place in November and December. The top 3 get a GT3 car in the final, P4 and 5 get a GT4 car, and P6 through 8 get into the October playoff, where the final 3 GT4 slots will be decided. 10 hosts on the SimGrid website are hosting the competitions, plus of course the 12-week programme that is currently running on LFM. So Places up for grabs, but not as many as you would think when you see the level of competition that we have got running through these grids. We've got Spa, Imola, Bathurst, Kyalami, Silverstone, all firmly in the rear view mirror. We're halfway through our sunny outing at Valencia, and we will be finishing proceedings at the Nürburgring next week, and you can guarantee that this is going to go right down to the wire, George.
Yeah, it's becoming more and more critical now, especially for the top 3 teams. Obviously, they've kind of semi-secured their positions. There's a reasonable distance between the top 3 and the rest of the grid. But Rocket Simsport, it's still all to play for them. If they can get a couple of good results here in that McLaren 720S Evo, then they could be absolutely right in it to get back up into that top 3 position. As you mentioned, there's still the opportunity to get into a GT4 car, and is that a car that's halfway in the ground? Yeah, it is. Okay, so the highlight's doing some funky things there, but it is what it is at the end of the day. Like I said, in terms of the championship standings here, Thomas Enge got a little bit of work to do. Obviously, you still get the position there in the GT3 class for the Grand Final, but you'd like to take the season victory as well. I think Thomas Enge would be absolutely stoked to do that. But the Italian Job Gold just on an absolute charge right now. They've had some great results. They had a 1-1 last week. They had a 1-1 in round 2. And so, yeah, looking forward to what happens in race 2 today at Valencia, which is just, I think it's a brilliant GT3 circuit, Valencia. Yes, it causes a bit of chaos here and there, but, the more cautious of the drivers, and I will say that Veldman/Illiger, those guys have done a fantastic job out on track because they started well down the grid, and they did absolutely brilliant to stay out of all the action, kept it quiet, kept their heads down. If someone was overtaking, they said, okay, well, you're going to get me there. But just did a good job in the Audi. A cat amongst the pigeons, in a way. The pigeons being the McLarens, I guess, in this sport. You never thought you'd hear me say a bad word about a McLaren, but there you go, it's happened. Thomas Enge, of course, they'll be looking to get up the grid in this next race, and Nürburgring's going to be absolutely fantastic round as well. It's one of my absolute favourite tracks. It's just a shame we don't have the Nordschleife add-on for it, really, isn't it? Maybe soon.
Not yet.
Hashtag soon.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. It's allegedly coming. How good would that be to get the Nordschleife?
Well, it'll be good enough just to watch it in the GT World Challenge. Getting to see these GT3 cars in the GT World Challenge do their thing at the Nordschleife is going to be absolutely amazing to see. So, let alone be able to race it. And I tell you, there won't be any other. I've always wanted myself to be a bit of a Nordschleife expert. I don't think I'll race any other circuits, mate. They got 8 races somewhere else. I'll take the 9th of the Nordschleife. That's all I'll practice for. Win by 50 minutes.
Nice, yeah, it's quite a track. I'm often challenged to memorise every corner name. No chance. Absolutely no chance.
Well, yeah.
I was going to say quickly, George, if you need to go and pour yourself a drink or get yourself set for the start of race 2, feel free. It is earlier than the sparrows get out of bed when you jump into the comedy box. So if you do need to take a couple of minutes, please feel absolutely free.
I appreciate that, John, and thank you. I'm going to momentarily exit the commentary box, folks, and go and do the thing that I need to do. It is, as he says very early, I need a bit more coffee in my cup, so I will be back before the start of qualifying. But John, will leave you the race server is now open, just FYI, and I will make sure that my live stream is also on. So, yeah, thank you very much. I will catch you all in just a minute.
Excellent. Here we go then, George Cook. Crazy good kung fu. He's as I say, he's a Twitch streamer himself, does a bit of ACC racing as well. He's in New Zealand, so it is the Australasian time zone he's in. So first thing in the morning, you can get up and you can watch him race as well. So and also of course dealing with me first thing in the morning. It's a whole lot of coffee. Let's not joke around. We've got the second race. There won't be any joking around from the drivers on track, as George said. The second server is open. The drivers are making their way back in, making final preparations for the second race, which, as I've said, will follow exactly the same format as race number 1. The pit window will open, so the 10 minutes encapsulate the middle of the race. So 25 minutes in, the pit window will open. 25 minutes left to go. and it will slam shut. And as we have seen, if you don't meet the mandatory requirements, of course the driver swap being the most important one, you will receive yourself a penalty of 130 seconds, aka a 10 position drop in the standings. Another McLaren driver applying for the NASA program, says Flawed Genius. Yep. Bravery on the curbs has certainly increased exponentially since the fabled 1.9 update. Once again, thank you. Definitely makes it a lot better. I tell you, for the Ferrari 296 at Watkins Glen is just an absolute dream. Since the 1.9 update, you can really attack the curbs absolutely properly. In the sim world, everyone will rage quit through damage before the end of race 1. Sim world. Yeah, that's maybe from an earlier sentence. What was I looking at? Oh yeah, of course, the highlights. Yeah, we're still running that as well. I got completely lost in another train of thought there. Sean mentioning he's glad he's not here this evening to pronounce some of the names. Outlaw, let's go Van Sand. Tuning on, my goat recovered from a drive-through very well indeed. Most certainly did. Not an easy track to pass, says Sean. Absolutely correct. Brown's gone, turning right. Not the optimal line. It most certainly is not. But no teammate this evening. And let me see if the first round of results. There we go. So the first round of results are actually with us. So let's have a quick look at the championship standings before we go into race number 2. Let me just make sure it is actually working. There we go. No, it's not. Don't you just love it when you're mid-broadcast and you get that little notification that says you've got a graphics card update? Let me see if I can fix it.
That is a bit magical, isn't it?
Thank you very much.
Yep, no worries at all. Of course, just jumping back in, just to give you the, keep the fear of sim racing in you, But just while you're sorting that out, just to help you out here, I just want to make a comment on that 296 thing, because I've driven the 488 once at Watkins Glen. Absolute nightmare. Absolute nightmare. That thing, you're driving it like on wet lines through there because you can't take any of the curbs. The bus stop chicane is an absolute nightmare. The 296 was an absolute send from the heavens in 1.9, so thank goodness they did that. The 720S Evo as well handles the curbs much nicer. It does improve things at tracks like Valencia. Misano as well, they found, both of those cars found a lot more time in those areas, because it was a bit tricky in the 488. My friend who I've been sort of helping get up to speed with a few things, he's a Ferrari fan. He's one of those lifelong, Ferrari-only kind of fans. I understand that because I'm a lifelong McLaren fan, so no matter what happens. But he said, no, 488 or die. And I said, well, you're going to die quite a lot, mate. But and so he did. But he sort of started his sim racing career in the 488, and he had a lot of challenges. Then the 296 came out. He gained about 2.5 seconds in his racing time just from switching into the 296. So it really is quite the car. But yeah, it's quite impressive, isn't it?
It is a torquey machine. Absolute joy to drive. It's really reignited my love for racing on ACC.
Not surprised. Yeah,
Can
not surprised.
you
All right, I'm
actually
gonna go back.
call what I do racing? Let us ponder
I think
that.
you can.
Well,
I think you can. No. You can't. I mean, as commentators, we're obviously a bit useless in the car, but as long as we're equally useless and are commentators, then we can claim some innocence there, I think, John. I'm going to go back to my coffee very briefly because it's just brewed, so I'll be back in just a second.
Superb. There we go. So George joining in on the debate as well. Let us know what you think in the chat as well. We do have the standings up on screen. I hope you can read them. Some technical issues. We'll get that sorted, of course, for next week. But it is confirmation with 6 wins so far. The Italian Job Gold have taken the top spot of the championship by 25 points. Thomas Enge now in second. VDES stay in third. Rocket Sim Sport stay in fourth. Fast Forward stay in fifth. PLR holds sixth. Panda Sim Racing get themselves up to 7th. Slovakian Racing down to 8th place. Tire Sim Racing now right on the bubble. They are 20 points, 21 points behind SR for the final playoff spot. And Team Ballast there with a solid top 10 finish see themselves a mere 9 points behind Tire Sim Racing themselves. Petler Aficionados with a 14th place there find themselves in 12th. So absolutely still all to play for in the races. Let's bring up some highlight action. The drivers, as I've mentioned, they are all in the next server, just getting some practice laps in. It doesn't look quite as bright as it did at the end of the previous race, but we'll see that up and running. The penalties did come, but saw a couple of teams picking up to 20 seconds of penalties in race number 1. I include that when you look at the Thomas Eng drive-through. That brought them back out, one of those teams, to the fastest teams on the track, battling out for 12th and 13th position in the closing stages, and that is going to be where they start in race number 2, the top 10 reversed. So the Italian job will start in 10th place with Rocket Sim Sport in 9th. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Italian job can do. They have got form for back-to-back wins. This would be a hat-trick of back-to-back race wins if they could pull this one off. And I've had nothing close to the highlights shown, so let me just break the fourth wall. Let's jump back to where we were. There we go.
I think just to scare the life out of you once again, John, I'm back with my coffee.
Excellent.
Absolutely brilliant at this time of day. But it would be a hat quad, I believe, before back-to-back wins, if they can pull it off. But yeah, racing from 10th to 1st here. 10th to 1st here, the coffee's still taking its effect on me, will be a bit of a challenge at this track while avoiding all the action that's going to be happening out on track. Of course, we did see, as you rightly so mentioned, all the penalties out there. I think we're going to see a few little things on track here, because the reverse grid always does shake things up, doesn't it?
It really does, and as we have mentioned as well multiple times, the track limits here are extremely inviting. It's very easy to overestimate the amount of grip your competitor ahead of you has on the inside line, which then puts you on the outside of the outside of the outside line, which usually puts your wheels on the green AstroTurf, if not slightly further out. It can induce spinning or track limit warnings, and you don't want either. Can confirm, much like starting from the pit, not a solid race strategy. And Alan Brown in the chat, somebody else, I did see that. Smiley put in a mention of it as well. I've had to back out, says Alan Brown. His pedals giving him a bit of jip. 3 track limits in 15 minutes, says Alan Brown in the chat. Really shooting to push it hard. Well, there we go. Straight from the horse's mouth, George. Alan Brown within 15 minutes. Just outside the top 10, but still managing to pick himself up 3 track limits. That is in a 1 hour race. That is a ratio you don't want to continue.
No, not really, but hats off for Alan Brown for continuing, and obviously the pedal issues. I've had those before. It's a nightmare to deal with, and I'm sure the degrading nature of the pedals also causing some issues as well. So hats off to Alan Brown for continuing to race, especially with no co-pilot, no co-driver, so to speak, and it's a tough thing to do. It really is. I mean, I regularly do the hour-long races, and solo, they are pretty intense, I'd have to say, in Valencia. It's not an easy track to do long stints at, so the 30-minute stint is it's about ideal. It's about all you really want to do on the track. That said, I've done an 8-hour endurance race here, and the 2-hour stints were very difficult to manage. Alan Brown saying Al didn't want to finish the race but did. Yeah, exactly. And hats off to you. I think at the end of the day, that's what you like to see. You like to see the sort of the persistence, the endurance, the patience that it takes to do that. So hats off to you. And of course, being one of the only FRL drivers in the FRL teams on the grid today, everyone else is sitting in the stewards box. So I guess you might be able to go and join them as well. So in the chat as well, Levitius, welcome in, mate. Good to have you in here. But yes, I'm actually just looking at the results here, and Rocket SimSport, John, have been marked down with a P2 finish. Have I missed something? I think I've missed something.
No, they did finish in P2. Yes.
So that's my bad, because I thought they were not in the race at the end of the game, but
yeah,
but
no,
they,
Rocket
they are.
Sport.
So
yeah, they definitely finished second. That was Luciano Witvit and Martin Klassen, of course.
Yeah, so they had such a quiet race that I didn't even notice them. So that's definitely my bad there. Apologies to the Rocket SimSport team in the McLaren 720 Evo, who had obviously a pretty decent race out, P2. Nothing to scoff at whatsoever. And that will really help them out because they're on 945 points now, as John was recounting earlier. Puts them within range, spitting distance just of that P3 finish. So they can continue this good run in the next race and the next round, 2 races after that. They could be there to challenge VDES Racing Team for the 3rd place spot. And yeah, we're in the main server now, 1 minute 30 to go. As you said, it is cooling down on track, a little bit of a wind picking up, and it is cloudy out there. So expect these temperatures to drop a little bit further. We could be seeing some very fast lap times out there because the lower temperature is going to help those tires last a little bit longer. Means you can push a little bit harder, and that's really going to help the teams who are now down in 10th and 9th place in Del Fante and Klassen. That's ITG, that's Italian Job, and Rocket SimSport, who are, in fact, on the grid, turns out.
Yes, indeed they are. It's like the old Audi advert I keep talking about. You don't notice how well something does its job until it doesn't. But in the chat, Levi, good evening, good evening. Legitimate legend on Gran Turismo 7. Give him a right click and a follow. And of course, Leon Seeley as well. An absolute sim racing god in my eyes. I've been a bit of a fanboy of Leon for quite some time now. So jump on board. He races, of course, in the Friday Nightclub series on this very channel, hosted by the very man bringing us the lead commentary and opening laps for this very event. Mr. George Cook. He's going to do so for this one as well as soon as I can get fully connected. There we go. Love that moment when you can actually hit the drive button and we can bring you live shots from the track. We've got George's view down in the bottom. He is going to lead the way around the 6th race 2. It's Valencia. There's only 2 races after this. They're at the Nürburgring. There's only 5 guaranteed places up for grabs. They're all in contention. There's 3 places in the playoffs. And guess what, George? They're all in hot contention as well, much like Del Fante and Klassen will be in to turn 1 on lap 1. Spicy, spicy, spicy. Here we go.
Oh, yeah. Spicy, very appropriate for being in the location that is Spain and Valencia. Beautiful track out here in Ricardo Tormo. Beautiful, beautiful place to be. Beautiful racing. And what a way to bring out the penultimate race in this series. Of course, starting on the top will be Santo, who's going to be racing for Tyre SimSports. Obviously, they finished P10 in the previous race. We've got Marchen there in the Porsche just behind, who's had a brilliant time out. SR Esport going to be very stoked with the performance of Marchen and the teammate as well in this race. Crook will start P3. The PLR Esports. So a good chance for them because PLR have proved last time out at Silverstone and at Kyalami that they really do have some pace in the Mercedes. Sadly, the Mercedes not exactly the best car here. And we've got Nopek for Dynamite Motorsport and the 69 car. Nice number. Yeah, that's right.
Then we've got they've had to rejoin with a different car, but that is Nopek he's in. So the Guerrilla Racing are in...
oh, yes, it is.
Beige?
Yes, I was wondering about that livery. It did look a little different, didn't it?
Beige.
Yeah, beige cars. You know, put that colour on the walls. Maybe not on a race car, but My opinions are my own, folks. Just a little disclaimer there. Then we've got Alexander here in the 141 car. So starting out instead of Rakhmatov in this particular race. So the little bit of a switcheroo there in terms of the order between the two. Then we've got Stamenkovic also starting this race instead of his teammate in the number 2 car. We've got Illiger in the Audi, the 252 car. They'll be looking to get another good result here. They've got P4, I believe, no, P5, sorry, in the previous round. That's why they're starting in 7th. And we've got Ogoroknikov in the 410 car, so things are getting a little bit spicy on track, of course. Klassen for Rocket Sim Sports, and then Delfante, who was our race winner last time out for the Italian job. Big job for Delfante to do here, to stay out of contact with the rest of the cars on the grid. Tricky starting right in the middle of the pack. I mean, smack bang in the middle of the pack. Same with the Rocket Sim Sports car as we do go down the main straight for race 2. It's all about to kick off. Side by side they go. In Rubia will lead us away for Tire Sim Sports, Sim Racing Esports. We will be going green momentarily for race 2 here at Valencia for the VCO Sprint Series here at FRL. And it's going to be green, green, green. There we go. Good start from all the competitors on the grid. Margen has a nice run, but they'll be on the outside for turn 1. And Rubia will have a nice inside line there with those red tires, red hot. And there's Nopek as well, having a good little look on the outside around the Mercedes AMG there. Alexander, that's a nice little start, holding the inside line away from Stamenkovic, but very close quarters there into turn 2, but everyone gets through cleanly. That's what we like to see. Crook has lost out the position to the Mercedes already, so Margin up into P2. Nopek now closely following the Porsche there. So Nopek will probably find a way past. There'll be some switch arounds happening in the previous side of the grid once we do get the order sorted out. And the timing sheets do take a little while just to figure themselves out, which we do like. A little bit wide there. Oh dear, no. Okay, well, we've got some big contact already, and we will take a look at that on our race replay at some point. But Delfante now, I believe, will be up into P8 once they come across the line, going through the midfield section in turn 9-10. At the moment, they'll go through into that nasty chicane. Hopefully they'll sort out the order. They'll need to be single file for that. So Leinard, Panda Esports Racing, got turned around early on in this race. But away we go. Santima now on the back end of class and still... Oh, very wide though. Very wide for Santima. Thomas Enge running very wide. That lets Delfante come straight through into the grid. But Thomas Enge had a brilliant start up from P13 all the way up. And now then top 10 for them, but they've got their competitor in Delfante ahead of them as we go on board with Delfante, who's got Klassen ahead for Rocket Sim Sports. A good first lap for all the competitors, and Rubia leads us away from Crook in the Mercedes AMG, from Mazjin, from Nopek, from Illiger, who's had a great start. 2 positions gained already on the first lap, John, for the Audi drivers.
Absolutely incredible open. Beautifully done there, George. The warm-up lap and the opening lap. And Rubia getting it done as well. 0.7 of a second. Equilibria's got back to Blaze Mason. Ben Crook in the Mercedes, of course, up to second place. There's barely 2 tenths separating most of the field. The main protagonists in that, Matthew Feltham and Milos Stamenkovic. I think I've just seen a name. Oh, Max Leonard falling further down the grid. So another not so great start for the Panda Racing team. Thomas Nopek. Apparently a run of bad luck, says Bjorn Dale, means they have switched liveries. So it's a deliberate change by the team as they go up the inside. Oh, and the bad luck might continue as that's caused a bit of a pile up. They've had a bit of contact there with Blaze Mason and the Porsche Mason on the receiving end of what can only be described as multiple contacts there. As completely unsighted cars made their way through. Let's have a look at this one from the back of Martin Klassen into sector number 2. And you can see just how close these 5 cars are to the back of that battle. So they make their way into sector number 3 through 6, 7 and 8. Oh, and there's the contact, goes round the other way. Oh, and that is a very good avoidance there by Martin Klassen. Does manage to escape the contact there, does lose a bit of time and a couple of positions. So Max Leonard will have Gagliardini involved in that as well. Dropping down the order, Gornikov in 16th position. It's all still happening as Eric Delfant is already up to 5th position. He's got Dominic Illinger in 6th now behind them. Martin Klassen in 7th. Of course, the avoiding action having repercussions. And Ben Crooks up at the front, George. The PLR team, they've got previous for pole positions and race wins. So too, though, in Rubia and the Tyre Sim Racing team. An incredible battle. Half a second separating the two up at the front, while still barely 3/10 separating the rest of the field.
I was about to say I like the fact that there's no McLarens up the top, but I also dislike the fact. But no, it's good to see a little battle here between the Lamborghini and the Mercedes. Of course, Nopek in behind, causing that big contact with Masjen. That has had repercussions that I cannot even explain. Down at that corner there, it caused a real shake-up of the top 10, but also a real big shake-up further down because there was subsequent contact with another few cars. For example, Thomas Enge team in Santima now down in P15 with Leinard behind them. Ogoroknikov down in P17 and Gagliardini as well in P17. So a few teams that we would expect up in the top 10, and critically, the Thomas Enge team, who's now making a move on Balawenda for the Petrol Aficionados team. They've got Masjid in the tow as well. Turn 1, they go side by side. Sensible back out there from Santima. Does a nice little switcheroo. Oh, gets it. Oh, going on the inside. Beautiful move here from Santima. That is stunning stuff, and I believe Masjid is going to try and look up the inside as well and get past Balawenda 2 for 1. Or backs out of it, though. Very sensible racing there from the Porsche driver after the contact they had earlier on, getting turned around by Nopek. Here's the replay of that. Absolutely stunning move there. A little switcheroo kind of happening here for the Thomas Enge team. So they've got a lot of work to do now because they're now second in the championship. They've had a bit of a disaster out of the top 10 for race 1. Santima has got it all to play for. Sandra Van Sand will also have quite a lot of work to do with the Thomas Enge team, but that is a stunning move down into turn 2. Beautifully executed, no contact there. There is only 0.3 of a second between these chaps, and actually I'm just looking around the grid, there's 5 or 6 battles with only 0.2 and 0.3 of a second around the grid. Notably what we're on board with now, which is the Rocket Sim Sports car driven currently by Klassen on the back of Illiger in the Audi, and just sticking a nose into saying, hey, I'm in your rear vision mirror. These objects do appear closer than they are in typical Jurassic Park style here. Klassen doing well up in P7. Del Fante has gone from P10 to P4 and has holding a fastest lap. So the Italian job car is on an absolute charge and only a second away from P3 in Nopek and the Lamborghini.
Yeah, they really are once again blowing a whole lot more than just the doors off once again, as we see Klassen looking to get a move done on the Audi of Illinger. Both teams we know have got race IQ and racecraft. The Audi we know to be outgunned. It doesn't mean it necessarily can be outsmarted. Illinger's got the racecraft, he's got the defensive mode, and he's hanging right on to the back of the McLaren ahead. Alexander Nietzsche for Team Ballas Ukraine. Got a view of this one as the penalties are coming in. The steward's pencil firmly warmed up, and Semenkovic's 20 seconds he is picking up, George. We might see a few more as a stall for time because we've got battles right through the field. As you mentioned, there's only a couple of tens separating a few of the cars up at the front. Ben Crook and in Rubia separated by only half a second. Yateman all over the back of Feltham, and Madawi not far behind there either, and Blaze, Mason, Michael Firth and Philippe Balawender in a battle there after Santema not long got that overtake done. But yeah, and another penalty coming in there for Feltham as well. So 8th and 9th, George, picking up penalties as the unbelievably close battling continues right through the field. We're on board with 7th at the minute. Yeah, correct, and rightly so from in chat. Leon Seeley saying bit of a sender. Yep, correct. And we've got Emmanuel there saying Del Fante attack. Yes, on the attack is the Italian job. They're attacking that gold store. They want to take that gold and they want to take it away to the bank and get it fenced into raw pure cash, which is going to be in the form of a season victory here potentially. Santima, I think, has just had an issue. Santima is off. Thomas Enge having another issue on track. We'll go on board with that shortly. Right now what you're watching is the overtake here on the 69 car from that beautiful McLaren, the 179. Yeah, Del Fante has gone past Nopek up into P3
on an absolute charge. Absolutely intense. The battle at first place as well, continuing to go. But, crikey, there's a lot happening on track. It was Santima for Thomas Enge down in P15 now. They were up in P12. They've had another issue running very, very wide off track, and they were about to get a replay of this, hopefully. A whole bunch of cars. They were just catching up to this pack of 3 ahead, and I can't remember which corner that I saw it at. Might have been a little bit later in this lap, but right on the back there of the silver Italian job car. Not the car of the Italian job team that they wanted to be on the back of, sadly. Trying the little switch back there. Touch. Oh dear, yeah. So, yeah, that's very unfortunate. A little bit eager there from Santima, but these things occasionally do happen when you're trying to fight back into the top positions, and after a shocking start from the Thomas Enge team, really not what they want. They're going to be pulling their hair out in the pit lane at the moment at the Thomas Enge garage. Really unfortunate. And by the way, just a note on Feltham, I think that was for a rejoin contact after that big contact we had down into turn 10 on lap 2. So a bit of a rejoin issue or something to that effect. We haven't got a replay of it at the moment. Now on board with another Audi driver of Feltham. So just having a quick look around, and it's Nopek. Nopek's got a big penalty there.
Oh wow, 15 seconds. That is a big kick in the pit stop. And Stamenkovic, biggest penalty we've seen of the evening, 25 seconds. He has accrued. Feltham has accrued himself. And Michael Firth a bit late on the brakes. It's caused double contact there. The accursed concertina effect coming into full effect for Michael Floppy Fox Firth. In the Ferrari coming in to sector number 2. All very nice and neat there. Is a bit wide of the apex, so it doesn't carry too much pace through. Maybe just paying a bit much attention to the drivers ahead. Ever so slightly late on the brakes. Takes the BMW for a spin. Manages to reverse off the track, but that's 3 cars making their way through. Firth now finding himself firmly in last position. Max Leonard isn't necessarily who I was looking for there, but he's got Santema potentially up the inside in turn 1. He decides against that. Klassen already through turn 1. He is still pulling on the back of the Team Ballas Ukraine car, and up at the front, Georgia, is as you were, and Rubia and Crook doing everything that they can. They're 9-10 separating them. They're putting in the laps that they need to put in, but they do have a rather large, even in the cloudy conditions, a rather large Eric Delfante sized and shaped shadow looming in ever so slightly.
Not a shadow that you want to see in your rear view mirror, I suspect, but one that you probably thought was a bit more inevitable. So a bit of a Mr. Smith and Neo kind of moment going on here. I suspect that it is unfortunately inevitable, but I didn't expect them to be up in P3 so soon in this race, because the overtaking is so difficult on occasion with the chaos happening at the back of the pack. Somehow Del Fante has managed to navigate that beautifully. The battle continuing here between Santima, Leinard and Masjen, all of which were up in the top 10 quite easy. Santima getting a 5-second penalty for the contact. I think that'll turn into a 10-second most likely with Silver Italian job. 10 seconds for Feltham remains. And Nopek, that 15-second penalty, that was applied because of the contact with Masjen that kicked everything off over at turn 10. It's what really initiated a lot of the contact around the grid. And that's a right-hand signal there for Leinard. Santima is going to absolutely go for it into turn 1. Beautiful overtake, and now is on the back of the Porsche driver of Masjen. So we'll be looking to make that overtake. So even though they've had a couple of issues, they're back up at the P12, are the Thomas Enge team, with Santima at the helm of the 121 car, McLaren 720S GT3 Evo car, now on board with the rear view mirror of Alexander, and now the normal cameras, which we do like. Got Klassen behind for Rocket Sim Sport, who's holding onto the back of Alexander quite nicely at the moment. So they'll be looking to really improve this, because this is their chance. I don't know quite where VDES are on track at the minute, John. Maybe you can find them for us on track, but VDES need to be ahead of the Sim Rocket car. So there they are. Ogoroknikov down in P16, part of that big contact, John. Look at that McLaren. that's a bit of that's a bit of damage.
Aerodynamically compromised, I believe
is the technical term,
is the politically correct term for completely finding its way into the pit stops soon. As soon as the pit window opens, I'm sure they'll be straight in. Martin Klaassen still looking to get himself straight up to 5th position, but it's not going to be as straight a journey as I'm sure he would hope. Nietzsche, whose surname I am giving my all to pronounce. Alexander, if any of Alexander's fans are in the chat, or his teammates, please do throw in pronunciation. Can you all say Delphant? Excellent, because he's up at the front. He's already within half a second. He is now closer to Ben Crook in second than Ben Crook is to the race leader. And if we jump on board there, we can't see that because of the logo, so we'll jump on board to the passenger seat. We are only 9 laps in, George. We've got 1.2 seconds separating the podium, and 4th place has got 15 seconds of penalties, and so too do 4 other drivers. But a phenomenal drive up at the front. Ben Crook now under pressure, the type of pressure he was hoping to apply to Enrubia ahead.
Correct, and Firth down on P18 now getting a 5-second slap on the wrist as well for part of the contact early on the race. So, that contact between Nopek and Mastian has had huge ramifications going forward, collecting some of our championship leaders, some of the race leaders as well in terms of the top 10. This is a great little battle though between Crook and Rubia and Fante at the moment. Delphant, I should say, the coffee's still seeping into my veins and waking me up. But Delphante is just on an absolute charge. This is absolutely massive implications for the championship lead here in the standings, because Italian Job in the McLaren is the only McLaren in the top 3. He's got 2 cars that are traditionally not particularly good at this track, in the Mercedes and the Lamborghini, and you can see in the rear vision mirror there on screen right now, look how close Delphant is to the back of Crook. And I hate to be this guy that says it, but it is rather a matter of when, not if, Delphante will get ahead of these two. Currently the top 3 not holding any penalties, which is going to really help him out. Nopek holding a penalty, Klaassen, Alexander not holding penalties either. So a big switch round coming. By the way, Santimo has managed to make himself get himself back up into the top 10 on an absolute charge. It's a man on a mission right now for the Thomas Enge team, trying to salvage what they can from round 6 here and salvage what is going to be a disappointing weekend for the Thomas Enge team, I suspect.
Indeed, to come into the round leading the way in the championship. It won't be the case on the way out of the round today. Remember that time you asked for an update on the football score in the background, and then really wish you hadn't. No spoilers in the chat. George knows. He's got his finger on the pulse. Mine's has just flatlined. Delphante, though, has definitely not flatlined. There's only 0.4 of a second separating the podium battle now. 18 minutes into the race. We've got 7.5 minutes until the pit window opens. We've seen the vast majority of teams go for the 50-50 approach. A couple of outliers going early, a couple of outliers going late, but it certainly seems to have been the predominant. Why has that gone so quiet? Let me just
not quite sure, but while you sort that out, I'll
go.
Yes, while that's getting sorted out, of course, technical things always very tricky. It's very tricky to do what John's doing, John Wright, of course. Our main broadcaster here today, he's doing a fantastic job handling and juggling about 50 different things at the same time, which I know from experience is incredibly difficult to do. So managing what is a brilliant live stream going on right now, that, by the way, for Crook was a little bit wide out of turn 11. Not necessarily ideal. Delphant is trying to see if there's a gap up the inside into turn 14, the last corner before the main straight. Wasn't any gap, unfortunately, for Delphant to fit that McLaren up. A big white car is the Mercedes AMG, and one of the best sounding cars on the grid, I reckon. The Mercedes, just a big low V8 rumble to it, which I absolutely love. But these three just sort of hanging out together at the moment. They're just hanging out on track. There's no sort of urgency from any of them, except for that little bit of a move there from Delphine. Now he's starting to really put the pressure on. He's going to be in the left mirror, then the right mirror. He's going to be looking down the inside, showing the nose of that car to Crook, and seeing if Crook will crack under the pressure that Delphine is putting on. Of course, very tricky thing to be sandwiched in between two drivers. You've got Enrubia ahead who you want to overtake and want to start putting pressure on, but as you start to receive pressure from the car behind, things do get a little bit scary. Oh, Maston there in the 56 car now getting a penalty for causing a collision. And that is going to be another slap on the wrist from the steward. So that's, let me count it, 6 cars on the grid now with reasonably significant penalties, other than Firth with only a 5-second, but that'll still cost, even though you're down there at the bottom of the grid. So the 56 car was very unlucky in the early parts of the lap to get knocked around by Nopek. But then, unfortunately, has caused some subsequent contact. Let's stay on board with the top 3, because this battle, John, is really not calming down. They're just holding on to each other, aren't they?
They really are. Separation anxiety counselling will be offered to all the drivers involved as soon as the race is finished, of course. They really are keeping one another very close. Such is the talent that they've got up at the front. I could not do this many laps this close to a car in front without, moving swiftly on. Not sure I can use that language at this time of the day. Turn number 2, Ben Crook, as he opened up the door, he's only gone and done it. Delphine once again. What an absolute overtake that was. Completely and utterly dominant. Gets it done on the brakes. And that is why they are championship leaders. We can see the run into turn number 1. Bit of indecision between the cars ahead. That more than opened the door up. They tried to go on the inside line, offered the inside line, or showed the inside line, went to the outside line and really used the outside line. Leaves just enough room on the inside there. The the Mercedes, Ben Crook, did everything he could to defend that position, but that, George, is why Eric Delphine and the Italian job are leading this championship, quite frankly.
Yeah, correct. It was, I'm just speechless. That was a stunning move there from Delphine. And unfortunately for Crook, decided to be a bit hesitant going side by side in a turn 1, which is fair enough, but got the run on Enrubia, and the car was very, very close on the exit, so he had to back out. That gave Delphine the opportunity to go around the outside. Sensibly, Crook defended to the inside, but once you defend to the inside, you've got the shallow line out, and the run. Oh, Delphine's going to have to run again. Oh my goodness, that was close into turn 1. Delphine will run a little bit wide there, but holds it on. No track limit warning there. No invoice coming his way at this stage. Enrubia now under all sorts of pressure from Delphine. Delphine's on a charge at this stage. The 179 car looking beautiful and in the hands of a fantastic driver as well. Folks, if you don't know how to racecraft, if you don't know how to overtake, watch the screen right now, because Delphine is putting on an absolute show of skill and craft, the likes of which we have seen all the way through this season by the Italian job team. And keep an eye on that 179 car, because the patience involved, the confidence involved is absolutely something to behold. Tries a switcheroo, putting a whole bunch of pressure on the back of Enrubia. Putting a whole bunch of pressure on the back of Enrubia. This is exactly the kind of racecraft I'm talking about. Enrubia is going to go and try a shallow line there, nearly an overlap for Delphine. Through turn 11 they will go now. A sharp left-hander, very, very quick. Don't run wide over onto those sausage curbs. Well done from Enrubia to continue the defensive charge here, but this is the best overtaking opportunity here. Enrubia knows it, goes defensive. Delphine will try around the outside and can't do it. We'll have to do the switchback. Crook's there, though, to pick up the pieces if anything does happen. What a battle here, and absolute top racecraft from these top 3. Just watch. If you want to learn something, watch now. Keep your eyes on the screen, because this is the kind of racecraft you should be doing and aiming for in your ACC racing.
Oh, absolutely, and that's the type of commentary you love to hear, to see the action. Ben Crook there, we had a bit of a lift there going into turn number 1, but no lift from Delphine. Goes side by side with Enrubia. Enrubia fends him off. Ben Crook says, thank you very much, you two can't get your battle done. Well, I'm going to steal myself a position potentially, if I can. The Mercedes really having a look up that inside line there. He's pressuring the two drivers ahead. Meta McLaren. We've got 3 manufacturers in the top 3, and they're separated by half a second after Delphant getting the overtake done on the Mercedes of Crook. Again, looking round the outside, Crook is rubbing his hands together, metaphorically of course. They're firmly attached to that steering wheel right now. I can assure you he is gripping that thing for dear life at the minute. They've already got race wins. A podium finish here puts them in a strong standing going to the Nürburgring. And as we go towards the end of lap number 15, and we are 53 seconds away from the pit stop window opening, it really is on a knife edge as to who is going to get the race win here. Majan and Leonard are separated by 9/10 of a second, and Gagliardini has made it from 18th back to 15th and looking to get an overtake on Feltham. But we are going to stay firmly, George, on this battle between the top 3, because still half a second separate them across the start finish line and into turn number 1 as Rubia makes his life difficult for himself.
Oh, and Rubia has been doing, we've seen Delphant put on an offensive masterclass here. Well, likewise, we're seeing Rubia put on a defensive masterclass here, because some of those defensive lines they took, cutting across the back of Delphant, closing off the apex, as we've just seen there, is slowing down the charge of Delphant, and that's exactly what you need to do. The more pressure, if you can back that traffic up. You've got Nopek now creeping up on the back of this three-way battle, and as you can, if Rubia can continue to back up Delphant into Crook, it keeps Delphante in a position that is under pressure, and that is absolutely key as part of the defensive strategy from Rubia. Beautiful driving from Rubia. The defensive nature of the driving is absolutely stunning, but having to do a lot of work and going offline multiple times to ensure that Delphant's not got an easy way through. The pit window is now officially open as the nighttime does start to crawl around 8:30 p.m. on track, and here's the onboard with Nopek right now, holding a 15-second penalty, sadly. Got Klassen for Rocket Sim Sports behind by 1 second, but this three-way battle was a two-way battle, evolved into a three-way battle. Now it's a four-way battle, and it's about to be a five-way battle, John. It's going to get very spicy, and there goes Delphant into the pits.
Wow, he does. Right early doors into the pits, less than a minute into the pit window. Not something we've seen from the Italian job team, but potentially feeling that they might get a bit held up in this battle if they continue with it. George did say in the opening the undercut here was very strong. Are we about to see that evidence? Although, to be fair, given the pace of Delphant and the team, I'm not really sure they're a fair benchmark on the rest of the world. The chances are they will get the overtake done just because they're unbelievably fast in the pits and out on track. Nopek with that penalty, 3/10 of a second now separate him from Crook. So 2 became 3, became 4, now becomes 3. Klassen looking to make it 4 once again. Giovanni Pipo in the chat, what a battle. James in the chat saying she sells seashells on the seashore. I heard she used a purple burglar alarm to advertise her wares while telling the time with an Irish wristwatch.
I was just waiting for you to read that chat message. I really was. I didn't want to bring it up. I was just waiting. It's absolute gold here to hear that. I would attempt it, but I think the play on words been a little bit twisted up there by Mr. Formula Racing League. So thank you for that. I think it's usually seashells on the seashore. Seashells on the seashore, I think, is the one. I'm not 100% sure. I always forget this, but I always go tip of the tongue, the lips, and etc. That's actually a quote from School of Rock. All right, let's not talk about that because I do like that movie a little bit too much. Nonetheless, the pit stop there, very sensible choice, I think, from Delphant, who will switch over to D'Elia now in the 179 car. Now, why is that a sensible choice? Why do I think that's a sensible choice? Clean air. Delphant clearly has the pace. They've got the fastest lap. D'Elia has proved as well in the previous race. They've got a lot of pace as well. So both the teammates are going to be really looking to find that clean air now. They were definitely being held up by Rubia's brilliant defensive driving, and so they weren't able to make any kind of a gap. The sensible choice was get into the pits as soon as possible, get that clean air, get the undercut done. We know we've got the pace, and end up in P1 after Crook pit. Now we got Rubia as well, who was our former race leader, now in the pits as well. Alexander in the pits. We've had a few others as well. Feltham in the pits. A lot of these penalties will be getting served during this time. So our provisional race leader on board with them now is Crook. So for PLR Esports, for the second time in 2 races, leading a race, which is brilliant. Of course, they won't be leading the race by the time they end up in the pits, sadly, but they'll still be in it, looking for a good P3 finish here today. I think would be an excellent result for PLR Esports and the Fungus Racing team. So 18 laps through, they got Nopek behind with a 15-second penalty. Team Rocket, Sim Sports behind them. In Klassen is in the car at the moment. The number 22 car, about 0.7 of a second behind Nopek. So, and coming into the pits.
He does indeed, as we are still a minute shy of the halfway mark. Klassen into the pits. Nopek carrying the penalty, stays out. Ben Crook has stayed out as well. Matthew Feltham now finds himself, no he doesn't, because he's into the pits. Carlo Delia battling with Santo, the entire sim racing. So the undercut not quite working for Delia, but he is at least 1 car closer to Delia. In fact, if these two are so close, and there was a car between them when they came in to the pits. Oh no, there wasn't, sorry, because he got...
Oh no! Okay, well, unfortunately that has ended very poorly there, and we will get a replay of this. So just a little bit eager from Delia, and somehow the pit stop, the undercut, didn't work nearly as well as we thought, because the car from Rubia did just get, well, the previously driven by Rubia, just got ahead out of the pit lane there, and here's where the contact about to happen. So coming up towards the very tough sausage curb on the right-hander, not the place you want to be overtaking, and yeah, on the brakes for the wider line, the 134 car, the Lamborghini, and a shallow line and a faster line there being chosen by Delia, and that's not working out. That will be a big invoice from the stewards, I believe, and now we've got Polovichok right behind Delia as well, so that has not worked out. Nopek still holding on to the back of Crook. Crook, our race leader, does come in for PLR Esports. So this is going to get interesting, John, because that penalty is going to be applied at some point to the 179 car. They jump up into P6 as it is now. They'll go a little bit further up the grid momentarily. The rest of the pit stops being served, and those times, the penalty times, will be served as well. Yeah, that was never really going to work, sadly, through that corner, unfortunately. So just a little bit too eager there at Herreros corner number 12 there from Delia, and that's kind of put a little bit of a damper on what was a brilliant race so far.
Indeed it was, yeah. Racing is certainly racing, and we've seen this so far. The penalties, as you say, John.
John, we've lost your audio.
Yeah, we lost me temporarily. It's yeah, despite being in Scotland, it is warm. Cozy. Crook, Leonard and Majan into the pits, and much like the character on Up, I've completely lost my train of thought. The penalties! If you are going to pick up a penalty, pick it up before the pit stop. Much like a penguin.
Yep.
But definitely get it done before you take the pit stop, so you don't have a hanging over your head in the closing stages. It can certainly be enough to spur drivers on behind to try and close that gap and steal that position. I saw it recently, someone ejected from the podium, 10-second penalty across the line, ended up in 7th position from 3rd, so close was the racing at Laguna Seca. And the fine margins that we've seen here, there's nothing to suggest that could not be the case here as well. Luciano Whitvet took stint 1 for Simply Race. In race 1, he's got stint number 2 here as the light diminishes, and the light diminishes and the headlights brighten around the track. Whitvet he's just got to move down on Trizoldi, so he's actually up to 4th position with Nopek and Ballawender still to take their pit stops. Delia is doing Delia things up at the front, putting in very quick laps already, throwing sparks up in the air like he just don't care. Will that get him to the end of the race? It probably will. Nopek.
It probably will, but...
Yeah.
Oh no, sorry, continue.
I was just going to, well, I was about to say Nopek still to take his pit, George. Ballawender to do the same, less than 2 minutes to do so, and then we're really going to see just how well Dalia has done since he got out of the pits when Nopek comes in to take his.
Absolutely spot on, yeah. And look, I mean, at this stage, D'Elia and ITG Gold, 15-second penalty. 15 seconds is a lot of time to put on in 26 minutes, and I just don't see it really happening. So at the minute, if we finish the race as it is, if D'Elia is in first place, that will drop them down easily to P8, so behind Santo. Santo at this stage, it looks to be about 8 or 9 seconds behind. Ooh, this is a nice little battle going on. Sandro Van Sam back in the McLaren for Thomas Engine. A nice move up the inside here on Loesch. So, yep, that is going to get done very nicely. And move up into P9 for Sandro Van Sant. Good start to the second stint here for Thomas Enns. They're back up into the top 10, starting the recovery drive that they need to do. Now, if they can get 2 or 3 more positions here, they could potentially finish ahead of the ITJ Gold team, who they are in direct competition with in the championship. And that would be somewhat of a scrape back of a result for them in what has been probably a bit of a forgettable weekend here at Valencia for the Thomas Enge team. On board now with Cosford in the number 2 car, having a nice little battle with Pasemko in the Ferrari up ahead. The Ferrari's not being particularly competitive here, so I do know it's quite a nice car to drive at this track. I had to drive it here for 8 hours. He said begrudgingly. But Absolute Motorsport Atlas doing a good job here. And that's going to be an undercut there from Cosford. So Cosford's going to make the move up the inside into turn 8, 9 and 10. Beautiful move there from the Lamborghini driver, and nothing to be said in back there for Pasemko. Nothing they could do, and will drop to P14. Pit window has now closed. Everyone's gone to the pits, and the only penalty on the grid at the moment is D'Elia, who will now, as you can see, retake the lead of this race. So your top 10 just quickly as it stands: D'Elia for ITG Gold, and then we've got Whitford for Rocket Sim Sports in P2. Now, they've had a good start here, up into P2. That's brilliant stuff. So, excellent from them. They've had a good little undercut go. Tresoldi now in the car for PLR Esports in the Mercedes AMG, in third place under a lot of pressure from Polovichok in the Team Ballas Ukraine team there. De Santo is now up into P5, so previously piloted by Inrubia. Now De Santo for Tyre Simsport. They were our leader for the first half of this race until that contact after the first stint ended. Veldman now jumps into the car for the Audi, and that's going to be the Fast Forward Racing team. They've got Lynn behind them, who's now finally managed to make it into the server. That's excellent for the Petrol Aficionados team. So Lynn now jumps into the car. It's good to see them on the race today, so maybe a little bit of an issue with the driver swap in race 1. Dale now takes over the Dynamite Racing Motorsport team here, the Lamborghini, previously driven by Nopek. They had a big penalty, that's why they're down in P8. Sand now takes over the car for Thomas Enge Sim Racing with a good stint from Santima to recover the car back into the top 10. Now P9 got a lot of work to do, though. Losch now jumps into the car, replacing Leinard for the Panda Esport Racing team, the 159 car, in the top 10 still, but got a lot of work to do to catch up with the rapid car. That is Sandro Van Sant and Thomas Enge. That is your top 10 as it stands right now.
Indeed, yeah, Zupanchik just outside the top 10, but fully inside the radar of Jason Pooley. The Simply Race Esports BMW all over the back of the Porsche along the start-finish straight. The battle between Cosford and Pasemko was, of course, for 12th as he got up the inside, for 13th, and Pooley, he's gone cruising up the inside there. The BMW absolutely destroying the Porsche in a straight line out of the last corner, and that is Pooley comfortably up to 11th position then. As I was saying, Cosford and Pasemko, that was the battle for 13th place, with Barry Gibbons in 15th. He's taking the wheel from Michael Firth. The Italian Job Silver car and Nicolo Nuti out for stint number 2. Joe Plaister out for MMS. He took stint 1, race 1. He is out stint 2, race 2. And Tamir Rakhmetov, I'd like to think that damage has been repaired during the pit stop, but the lap times are actually very, very quick. 130.8, so they're not actually too slow. So yeah, maybe the damage has been repaired, but the damage done to the race overall, certainly in that opening stint, is into the closing stint. That is for sure. 22 minutes to go. Race number 2, round 6 of the Formula Racing League Super Sprint 2, the Grand Finals. Of course, the SimGrid VCO Grand Finals in November and December, a 3-round endurance race that will be contested by the top 5 teams from 10 hosts. FRL, of course, being one of them. The top 3 from each of the competitions will get a GT3 car. 4th and 5th will get a GT4 car in the final. And 6th, 7th and 8th will get to go into a playoff in October. And the top 3 cars from that playoff will get the final 3 GT4 spots in the final. So yeah, still a whole lot of racing to come. 20 minutes here tonight, 2 hours next week, and then the playoffs and the finals themselves. And yeah, from what we've seen in the heats so far, Joe, I've been fortunate enough to preside over one or two of the races so far, it's safe to say. The standard that we've seen is it's
more like 19 or 20
in the opening week. But yeah, no, the standard that we've seen so far, the finals themselves, absolutely tantalising. All calendars, diaries, Google, everything set for those the playoffs and indeed the finals themselves.
Going to be brilliant. I'm super looking forward to it, even just here, whether we're in the commentary box or not. I'm going to be watching that series, and I do encourage everyone, of course, to make sure that you are keeping up to date with when those races are happening, because they are going to be something else to behold. I guarantee entertainment when you do go and watch those, so make sure you're keeping up to date with all that information. By the way, just a little update from on track. Polovichok got past the PLI Esports Mercedes, so the Mercedes not having a good time in the latter half of this race. As the track cools down, it brings these McLarens back into it, and Polovichok was absolutely chocking it up the inside of Tresoldi there and got past quite a couple of laps ago. So now Santo is putting pressure on the back of Tresoldi as it stands now. So the PLR Mercedes is not doing particularly well in the latter part of this race. The other drivers, who were the first stint drivers, I believe, in race 1, started second in this race. It's not mandatory, of course. It's a choice by the engineers of the teams as to who goes when. Currently on screen right now, we do have Velman, and I think that's Jimmy Lynn. So a little battle evolving between Velman, Jimmy Lynn and Dale. They are looking quite spicy, these three. Probably the closest out on track as it stands right now. And Jimmy Lynn is lapping very, very quickly. Currently lapping in the 130s at this stage, being slightly held up by Velban, who is doing some great work on the defensive driving there. So taking over from Illigner early in the race. Illigner, who'd done very, very well to get the car up the grid early on and maintain these positions. So it's pretty much held it at this stage. And that was right at the end of the replay, a little bit of a moment there for Lynn. Dale, right on the back of this train. We're going to go on board for a shot, and keep an eye on the inputs here for the Lamborghini and the 69 car. As smooth as you can as possible, but this Lamborghini can be a little bit crazy off the line. Nice line there through the Terrell corner, T4. And there's another interesting view from the cockpit. I love these internal cameras. They're absolutely brilliant. All of them having a brilliant little viewpoint for us, adding to the race. Really, really does. So big shout out to our broadcast team in John Wright. Of course, he's an absolute legend. Of course, if you haven't heard of John Wright, 00 Raven is his nickname. He's an absolute legend. Make sure to keep that name in your mind. I guarantee you'll find entertainment no matter where he ends up, and no matter what commentary box, on what circuit, on what time of the day. This man is an absolute legend. So we do, of course, owe him quite a lot here for all the work that he does with FRL and all the other leagues. As you said before, quite a few races, not just one or two, mate. You're being a little bit modest there. And of course, would love to see you there in the grand finals as well. This battle is just not cooling down at all. It's full jalapeno.
It really is, and I genuinely didn't even pay him to say those things, and I'm not really great with compliments, so we're absolutely going to crack on. Beyond Dale and Jimmy Lynn, they're not listening to what is being offered to them from the commentary team. They're busy listening to the engines in over the shoulders. Veldman got Lynn and Dale looking very close. Dale, we know, got some very quick pace in the Guerrilla Racing Lamborghini. We'll see just what they think the change, how much luck the change of livery the field has brought them. Another one would have dropped down the order, but inside the top 10, so still going to get themselves some good points. Santos still looking quick up behind Tresoldi in the Mercedes. So still potentially a battle evolving for 4th place with 16 minutes left to go, and Rakhmetov for the VDES junior car I'm going to declare that car has been repaired, but a 131.4 does put that slightly into question given the tumbling track temperatures. Newty ahead. Again, not the type of finishing position we're used to seeing for the Italian Job silver car, but this is where the two of them are battling at the minute. 16th position. They will still bring home points, not as many as they would have liked. Very much damage limitation exercise at the moment. What type of exercise are Veldman, Lynn and Dale on at the moment? Is a bird in the hand worth two in the bush? What do we think Bjorn Dale's going to do? I'm pretty sure he's just going to sit there and wait on Lynn and Veldman to go side by side and hope that he can find his way through. No point trying to force the issue from the position that he is currently in. And that is the volume fixed. But certainly
there is only...
up ahead, that is close.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, there's only one racing league here where you can really force an issue, and that's MotoGP. In GT3 cars, it does not work. Patience is really the ultimate virtue, and if you've got patience, you're definitely going to have about 5 or 6 in the bush. If you're just to carry on what you were saying there, so you might have 2 in the bush here, of course, because it's just 2 cars ahead of him. But Dale here in the drive back for Dynamite Motorsport. This is important to stay patient, to stay virtuous, and to continue racing safely in the latter half of this race. 15 minutes to go in this race now, and it is looking pretty good across the grid. On board now with Santo, who's been holding onto the back of Tresoldi. So Tyre Sim Racing Esports sadly getting turned around early on early on this stint, about 15 minutes ago, by D'Elia in the gold team. Unfortunately for Santo, currently sitting outside of that 15-second window, the penalty for the Italian gold team. So at the moment, as it stands, the Italian gold team could still pick up a P3 finish here unless Tresoldi can either get out of the way or get a bit faster on track. The battle continues as we're on board now with Lynn Veldman and Dale at the minute. Van Sanders, unfortunately, 13 seconds down the road. So unless they can find a second per lap, the Thomas Enge team will be looking, yes, at a top 10, but a P9 finish only, sadly. And that is going to really hurt them in the championship overall. Just a quick note on Rakhmatov's car, the 410 car. Almost certainly they didn't bother to repair that damage. That front hood of the McLaren looking awful. But here's a move from Dale. Can he look up the inside? He was given almost no space there. He knew that the door was going to get closed by Lynn, so it's a little bit opportunistic there for Dale. Nothing eventuates, unfortunately, from that particular look up the inside. And unless you're right side by side, turn 2 is not a particularly good overtaking place. Oh, that was a moment. That was a moment there. Get the new socks. Get the new socks on right now. And but I think, given their new livery, that might have been burning a little bit their luck there, because that was definitely a lucky little moment to catch that. Well, skilled moment, I should say. I'm not going to take anything away from Dale. Good catch from the driver in the seat.
Indeed, yeah, that was a whole lot of tyre screech there as Dale kept the car going in the right direction. We were talking about how important it is, if you're going to get a penalty, which happens in motor racing, maybe best to get it before the pit stop, because we've got the race leader now with 15 seconds hanging over their head and a 3-second gap back to Luciano Whitvet, who was on the last lap 4/10 quicker than the race leader. With 13 minutes to go, it bodes well for Rocket Simsport. They're going to come charging into the top 3 of the championship after this result. It has been an unbelievable change to the standings over tonight's races, and I did say at the start I felt this was a championship that would not be decided until the first 5 or 6 cars crossed the line and the final race. I absolutely 100 million % stand by that statement as wholeheartedly as I ever have done in my life. It's Carlo Delia just getting the double blue flag overtake done on the drivers battling for 16th position, but it has cost them a tenth of a second back to Luciano Whitvet. Polovchuk still in 3rd, Tresoldi in 4th, Santos still in 5th at the minute with Veldman in 6th, Lynn in 7th, Dale in 8th. It's Van Sand up in the 9th position. Needs a lot of pace in the closing 11 minutes to make any inroads into Bjorn Dale, but he has just gone 1.3 seconds quicker on that last lap. is there hope for more points for Thomas Eng before the end of tonight's race? And everyone's favourite racing mammal, Panda Esports, rounding out the top 10 in equilibrious 9 seconds front and back. Van Sand ahead, and Jason Pooley for Simply Race Esports in 11th. Kosver, Pasenko, Zupanchik just outside the top 10. Rakhmatov, Nuti and Playster 16th, 17th and 18th place. And at the minute, George, 7th and 6th is still the position. That is a bit of a hot potato with 11 minutes to go. Lynn doing his best to break away from the battling two behind. Can Dale craft himself an overtake and catch up once again and get himself involved? 10 minutes to find out.
Yep, I think it's possible. You just got to keep your head down at this stage. Of course, the darkening conditions, so the driver's starting to have to make a little bit of an adjustment to what they're looking for. Might not be quite as easy to see what's, see a braking zone, see what's going on around you. Of course, the headlights in the car behind and the car ahead can be pretty bright. So depending on your gamma settings in the game, you might be a little bit compromised in your vision at this stage of the race. Currently, DeSanto managed to find a way up to P5, still holding on to that P5 position, which will be a solid overall result. But as you mentioned, Rocket Simsport having a brilliant day out. This is going to be a 2-1, as in second place, and then a first place finish if they can hold on to it. So Whitworth at the moment coming through the traffic that D'Elia has just navigated. There's only 2.5 seconds between them, so Whitworth doesn't have to take any risk at this stage. No risk. Don't worry about the blue flag traffic. Let them get out of the way as they like. Don't go for any sends at this stage. And of course, I don't want to do any kind of commentary curse on anyone, but D'Elia just needs to try and push as much as possible. Currently, with Trasoldi about 10 seconds behind Polovichok, I believe D'Elia will still get a P3. That's a drive-through for D'Elia. Oh dear, right, so D'Elia now has gone through all the track limits that you're allowed, all the warnings gone, as the blue flag traffic does move out of the way for Whitworth, and that's a drive-through, so it's gone from bad to worse. So I was just saying they were going to get a P3 here. Nope, they are not going to get a P3 because that drive-through is going to cost them an extra 30 seconds. This is huge for Thomas Enge and a few other cars on the grid, because that is going to drop the now championship leaders all the way down the grid. It's not going to be a great result for them at all. I thought P3 was going to be a good way to sort of class back at what was a 15-second penalty, which was at the end of the day rightly deserved. And DeSanto and D'Elia coming together earlier on in this stint, and now D'Elia with that track drive-through is going to have to come into the pit. Probably going to do it sooner rather than later. No, goes out for one more lap here. So Whitworth will be very, very comfortable now. Doesn't have to worry about anything. And there's a 179, 2 laps left on the drive-through for D'Elia, so they will get through that momentarily. John, that's quite the switch around, but just a quick note here as well. Thomas Enge having a result like this, it's actually going to put Rocket Simsport in range of getting ahead of them potentially in the last round. There won't be much separating those two in the championship.
There really won't. I'm trying to do some very quick maths in my head. The connotation, the amount of change we've seen in the championship over tonight's two races is it's as incredible as the overtakes that we're seeing on track. D'Elia, that huge ramifications. The Italian job of just taking the lead in the championship this evening with a championship leading 6 race wins. 3 more in fact than anyone else in the series. They may well lose the lead on the way out of the championship given the results that we are seeing. They're going to tumble down the order. Rocket Simsport are going to bring home a big race win. They're 56 points behind. The Italian job need to keep it in the top 10. It is as simple as that. They need to keep this inside the top 10. Not as easy as it sounds when you've got a drive-through. And Luciano Whitworth, he smells blood in the water. He has got that gap down from 3.1 to 2.4 seconds. Santo still trying to get past Trasoldi. And D'Elia, George, he's got 1 lap to take that long, slow, painful drive through the pits.
Correct. This battle between Santo and Trasoldi has been evolving quite rapidly. It briefly got to about 0.1 of a second between the two at turn 6. But Tresoldi's doing a good job to hold off the charge of that Lamborghini, that bull. Hot on the heels of the Mercedes AMG car. So Santo trying to desperately and very well recover from what was an unfortunate incident with D'Elia. So they'll be sitting in the pit lane looking at that drive-through going, yep, that's justice. But of course, justice is in the eye of the beholder. And of course, the team at Italian Job Gold will be bermuding. They'll be pretty grumpy about the fact they've got to drive through, as well as that 15-second penalty to serve. Of course, those are 2 separate penalties, so you've got to do the drive-through. That is separate than the 15-second penalty. You have to be stationary to serve the 15 seconds in the pit. So De Santo looking to take a P4 here, which will rapidly become a P3. So Tresoldi right now overall is actually up for a podium position here for PLR Esports. That is a great little result for the PLR team. But De Santo here is going to be very, very keen. Needs to find a way past Tresoldi. I think he's got the pace to do it. The problem is that Mercedes is looking awfully wide on a track this thin, so to speak. And there we go, into the pits comes D'Elia to serve the drive-through. Through goes Whitwhip up into the lead of this race. So SimSport Rocket, or Rocket SimSport, now take the lead of the second race in Valencia. Brilliant job from them to keep it tidy, keep it clean, keep it out of the penalties, keep it out of the barrier. And they are now up into the lead position of this race. What a fantastic day for Rocket SimSport.
It really is. It's an incredible drive from both team members and a well-deserved race win. They've kept it between the mail and the mustard. They've kept their number out of the steward's book, and they've kept the car in the pits for an absolute bare minimum amount of trips. Santos looking to capitalise on the penalty. Let's see exactly on a 10.
Santos has got ahead. Yes, Santos ahead of Tresoldi now.
Well, he is indeed. Let's have a look back at this one. Oh, he really is ahead. So let's have a look at this one. I think Delhi is back out in third. But he's still got the 15-second penalty. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, and 15 seconds, Sean. Yeah.
Yep. So the 15 seconds was for the contact early on that put Santo and the Tyre Esports car down the back of the grid. It was a great drive back from the Tyre Esports driver. I think might have been the rejoin from the pits here that D'Elia got involved with. I think Tresoldi might have been potentially shuffled a little bit wide. There's the D'Elia, there's the Italian Job Gold car coming out of the pit lane there. It's a clean exit at this stage. So what happens to Tresoldi? We're keeping an eye. Down the inside goes De Santo, late on the brakes. Oh, very deep into the corner, but holds it on the apex. Nicely done to get that Lamborghini slowed down. And Tresoldi, just had nothing to offer back for that. D'Elia does hold on to third place. That is not too much of a surprise there, but the 15-second penalty still being held. So just to make sure everyone's aware, there are 2 separate penalties. A drive-through is a drive-through. You have to drive through, no stopping in the pits. You have to do that. You can't stop in the pits. And then the 15-second penalty is applied only when you stop the car. So it will be applied at the end of this race for D'Elia. Real shame there for them picking up both of those things late in the second stint of this race. Dale now on the back of Lynn, and now we're on board with Sandro Van Sand up into P9. Now, after that 15-second penalty gets applied, I have to do some quick math here. D'Elia might just drop behind Van Sand, so if Van Sand can get ahead of Veldman, get a few really quick laps in here, they could actually finish ahead of the Thomas Enge team. Rightly, as you said, though, John, this championship has been mixed up entirely at Valencia. So thank you, Valencia. Thank you, Spain, for this, because this is absolutely incredible. Quick note from chat before I throw it back over your ways, John. Smiley asking, is Van Sand in for Jeff Ritchie? Yes, it is. So Jeff Ritchie not able to make it to Spain today. Is an outside move there. Look for Sand. So Sand doing a good job to replace the incredibly quick Ritchie in the car, and doing a good job on the debut here in the Sprint Series. So Van Sand, a familiar name from other series, including GD3 Nightclub, and this battle will continue. And of course, Rocket will drop. So we've got Drofter in the chat as well. Rocket will be about 40 points behind Thomas Enge going into the last round.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a big swing there, as we can see. The PLR Mercedes just guiding its way past a back marker. Jimmy Lynn is still defended from Bjorn Dale down the road. Van Sand looking for what could be unbelievably vital competition points given that 15-second penalty. As George just pointed out, they could well end up behind Van Sand, because that, if you, quick bit of maths will tell you that doesn't come. That is very close to 15 seconds. In fact, I would hasten to say is under it. Remy Loesch, of course, won't be close enough. Van Sant definitely getting close enough to the Audi. And this is potentially for P7. They're going to get promoted with Delia, and he's gone up the inside. He's looking for that move to get it done on track rather than down to the penalty. He's got the outside line as they make their way into the middle sector. The McLaren's going right round the outside of the Audi, and he's made that one stick. The Audi's going to have a good run. He's going to have a look back up the inside. In fact, is he going to manage to hang on to it? Oh, and he's almost made contact there. But Van Sant gets an all-important position at the end, George, and Luciano Whitvet crosses the start-finish line to begin the last lap with the race lead.
Correct, and actually I've just double check on some of the gaps here. D'Elia is 14.3 seconds behind Polovichok. We've got 3.8 seconds, another 3 seconds there, and Van Sand at this stage is 8.9 seconds behind Dale. So no, Sand will not finish ahead of D'Elia. The 15-second penalty will not quite swing their way this time, but D'Elia will be finishing down the grid. So this is really, really big for Rocket Sim Sport, a huge result. This will be their best weekend ever in the championship. Their best weekend they had so far was in round one, a second and third place finish in the two races respectively. This will be a second place and a first place. This will be their first victory in the sprint series, so another team to be added to the list of winners here today. And of course 5 seconds left of this race, and sliding as we saw Max Verstappen do at the end of Abu Dhabi in 2021 to celebrate the victory that has been well deserved by Rocket Sim Sport. Through the last couple of corners they come for the last time in this race. It's late out on track. They've done a brilliant job. The pit lane crew will be running over to the side of the pit wall, and for the last time down the straight, Whitfuit and Rocket Sim Sports will take the victory here at Valencia for round 6. Flash of the lights across the line, and a big checkered flag has been taken for that team.
Indeed, yeah, and Pavlo Polovchuk, another team that are going to be absolutely delighted. Team Ballas on the podium in second position. We've got Sean Madden, commentator extraordinaire, in the chat, pointing out that with a 15-second penalty, it does look like Delia is going to finish in 8th position. He's just crossed the line in 3rd, but we definitely know Danny Santo up to 3rd position for Tire Sim Racing. Trizaldi crosses the line with James Lynn. Jimmy Lynn, Bjorn Dale and Van Sand all close in attendance. Up to 8th here, Veldman in 9th position, and straight into the wall with Remy Loesch and everyone's favourite racing mammal, the Panda eSport racing car. Got Jason Pooley not far behind there in 11th position. Their positions secure though. Cody Cosford securely in 12th place, with Make Pasemko going across the line in 13th, and Lucas Sapanchik for the SR eSport team. The third car will get 14th position. Nuti Rahman, Rakhmatov and Gibbons have all already crossed the line. But yeah, you led us into these, George. Lead us out of this one. Not straight out of the broadcast, obviously, but yeah, it's the end of the race. Luciano Whitvet, what a drive. And that penalty has put Delia in 7th position. So just held on to 7th and snuck himself ahead of Van Zandt and Van Zantema. Bring on the Nürburgring!
It was very close, and the Nürburgring is going to be a special race to finish off the sprint series because we've got a very, very close championship in it now. And yeah, I had a feeling that Sand was not going to get ahead based on the difference of time. It's a bit hard to calculate on the fly, and things were changing right up until the last corner, but Van Sand not quite able to eke out enough time. I think there was only about a second or so in it, but nonetheless, your results here. Of course, the McLaren of Rocket Sim Sports takes the victory here with Whitfuit and Klassen in the car. Polovachok and Alexander will take P2. Santo and Rubia, good fight back from the Tire Sim Sports guys. That is a brilliant result. P3, I think that's one of their best results in the season. You could say, Sean, you could say, John, John. We'll look past that for the moment. You could say that the Panda Esports team rolled across the line, but they did very, very well as well. There we go. God, I was waiting all race for that. I thought of that earlier. I thought I'll throw that one in. But no, overall, what a brilliant, brilliant race we've had today, John. It's been a spectacular thing to watch. It's been spectacular to be watching all the chat messages come in today for the Super Sprint Series to the grand finals. And John, of course, a real pleasure, as always, to be in the comms box with yourself on a sunny morning here out in New Zealand, and a great day out in Spain in the evening.
Indeed it was. Indeed it was. To another two absolutely phenomenal races to put into the history books with the Formula Racing League Super Sprint to the Grand Finals Series. We started the series with 14 races ahead of us. 12 of them are now in the books. I know, I'm heartbroken as well. There's only 2 races left. We can maybe speak to James nicely and see if he can add an 8th round.
I don't see what round. You know.
A final decider, double points, just to make it even more interesting. Why not? Let's throw the cat right amongst the pigeons, says the commentator hiding behind the microphone. It will be next week that the final round will be decided. It will, of course, be covered here on the FRL, one of the FRL PC ACC channels, multiple channels to quench your sim racing needs, provided by Formula Racing League, ACC on PC and PlayStation 5, and now R Factor 2 as well. All the races back catalogued on YouTube. Make sure you get yourself into the Discord, get involved with the racing, keep up to date with when the next races are. As I say, it is the Nürburgring for this one next. Absolutely cannot wait for that. Congratulations to all the podium winners this evening. Incredible racing once again. I'm going to leave you with the highlights from round number 2. We might even do a quick... Oh no, it's the off season, so there isn't another FRL channel running at the minute. So we'll leave you with the highlights. I'd like to echo what George was saying. It's been an absolute pleasure having you in the commentary box, George. Cannot wait to do so again. The racing here, it really does bring the best out of the commentators.
It sure does. A pleasure as always, John. I'm going to go and get to work, mate, but pleasure as always. Thanks to everyone in the chat. Thank you to the FRL organisers, and congratulations, echoing what you've just said, to all the drivers and teams. Great job. I'll catch you next time. But John, back over to you, mate. Pleasure as always, and thank you.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, George. Gets up at the first thing in the morning. He's going to be able to sneak off and get himself to work. That is the level of dedication right there. Go Team Ravencoms. But we'll leave you with the highlights. That is enough from me this evening. I'm going to go back and watch this one again myself. Until next time, stay safe, take it easy, and have a great rest of your night. Good night.